Hey everybody, before we get started with the MinnMax Show podcast, I wanted to let you know that you can check out another Eden, The Cat Beyond Time and Space. It's available on Steam now. It's a JRPG from Masato Kato, the writer for Chrono Trigger, writer and director for Chrono Cross. Another Eden is a time-traveling story set across a vast world with several different time periods, and it also has the obligatory frog hero in it, who is named Cyrus, very interestingly. The game has a live orchestrated soundtrack with over 60 songs, and the main theme was composed by Yasunori Mitsuda, my favorite composer of all time, who composed Chrono Trigger, Chrono Cross, Xenogears. It's so great to hear new music from him. So if you're interested, you can check out another Eden, The Cat Beyond Time and Space on Steam, or you can follow the link below, bit.ly/MinnMax, if you want a direct link. Hello and welcome to the MinnMax Show, a place about games, friends, and getting better. I'm Ben Hansen, joined by Jeff Markia Fava.
Hello.
Suriel Vasquez.
Hello.
And Janet Garcia.
What's good?
What is good? How's it feel? Is it all just kind of normal for you now to be a cohort here at MinnMax?
Yes. It's like literally like I've been doing this for my whole life. I was born here.
And you'll die here, Janet.
Anyways,
welcome everybody. We have a lot of fun stuff to go over today. We're talking about E3 2021. It's back, y'all. Everyone's excited. We'll explain what that actually means. We'll finally talk about Outriders. I don't think we talked about the beta or anything, but this is the new co-op focused People Can Fly Square game. Then Kyle Hilliard's going to join us. We're going to talk about Oddworld Soulstorm a bit, and then some recent gems or just new releases on the Apple Arcade Store, which have been interesting, more interesting than you'd think. Before we start, I wanted to let everybody know that Trivia Tower, which is our video game trivia competition for the community, we do it once a month, and the next episode of Trivia Tower is happening Monday, April 12th at 7 p.m. Central. And we're going to be joined by a very special co-host for this episode, Kelsey Lewin, from the Video Game History Foundation. She was on the podcast not too long ago talking about Pokemon. She was on the Deepest Dive for Animal Crossing a while back. Janet, I think you know her a bit. She is, I think, the smartest, has maybe like the most encyclopedic knowledge of games, because she also runs Pink Gorilla Game Store in Seattle. So she just knows everything. And that combined with like video game history knowledge, she's going to be an amazing co-host. I can't wait. So Trivia Tower, if you aren't familiar with it, it is a trivia competition that takes place in MinnMax's Discord. So if you support us on Patreon at any tier, you get access to the Discord where you compete, you buzz in with answers. Starts out with as many people that are in there. If you get an answer right, you move on to the next floor. There are 5 floors. Last person standing wins an Astro A50 wireless headset, which retails for like $300. And there's also game codes depending on which floor you get to. So it's an awesome way to support us, test your knowledge of video games, and win some great prizes. And there's the thing. It's like you're probably still uncomfortable with the idea of pub trivia. I know some people are getting vaccinated, but it's still a ways off. And what, you go to the pub, you got to buy a bunch of beer and French fries and nonsense and put up with, a bunch of questions about physics and, boring adult stuff. This is the real test for your video game knowledge. So if you support us, even at that $2 tier, you can jump in and compete on Monday, April 12th at 7 p.m. Central. Trivia Tower plug over. Jeff, I don't know if you followed it, but last week there were the rumblings that, hey, E3's maybe returning, some confusion about, is this thing going to be behind a paywall? What does that mean? Then the ESA got out there and said, no, for the love of God, no, it's not. And they actually announced this week that E3's back, right? The crowd goes mild. I don't know. Jeff, how plugged in were you to like the resurgence of E3 here?
Not super plugged in. I saw them say, God, what was their exact messaging was like, we're listening to the future, and so we're taking E3 into the future. And it's like, yeah, okay, you guys.
You'll royal us if we don't do this at this point, and we have to have one because we're the ESA.
A lot of the messaging is really interesting. So there's a lot of messaging here. One bit about the future is to say this year's event will be a reimagined and hyper-engaged digital experience, paving the way for so much more in 2022 and beyond. And then elsewhere in the press release, I believe they say that the quote, the ESA looks forward to coming back together to celebrate E3 2022 in person. In the meantime, see you online this June. So they say that June 12th through June 15th, they will be having live streams. They say they'll be having press conferences, and they have early commitments from, all right, let's rattle it off. We got Nintendo, we got Xbox, Capcom, Konami, Ubisoft, Take-Two Interactive, Warner Brothers Games, Koch Media, Coach, I'm always confused about that, and basically just Embracer Group, just call it that at this point, and more to come, is the way they phrase it. Where's everybody's hype level at for E3 2021?
I'm tired of online events.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm glad that they're not doing in person. Like, I know Gamescom is doing hybrid, which I'm not a fan of that concept, just because I think it's too early. Like, vaccinations aren't happening, but, you know, we can easily undo the good things that have been done. And historically we have. So that, you know, fills me with fear. So I'm glad at least that it is a safe event. But, and, you know, I guess I take this over and having nothing, because like something is inherently somewhat better than nothing, unless something's like, I don't know, reductive or takes away from anything. But something about it being online it just loses some of the simmer. I think the other issue that ends up being too is like so many other whether it's like gaming outlets or just other conferences like Jeff Keighley's Summer of Gaming or Gaming Summer Game Fest. Yeah, they all have like the same variant of the same name.
Right.
Like it just becomes sort of like we get a lot of little things now and nothing's really the big thing anymore. So I still think if I had to bet money on it, online E3 will probably still have the like most interesting news of the events that we see, just because historically they have had that in the past, but it's not as exciting as like having it be the actual thing. And we all know that E3 has kind of been on a downspin the last few years anyway. So it's just sort of like cool, but not like, you know, I'm not moved to tears over the announcement or anything.
Well, they try to like really build the hype up with a big tweet about it. They say, sign up for updates below and get hyped for the return of the most exciting show in video gaming. They're really trying to build this as like, we're back, baby. This is going to be the place to be, which like the publishers they have on board are solid, are really interesting. Obviously the big misses so far, absent ones are Sony, but I mean, they hadn't been at E3 for a while. And then Activision confirmed to Axios that they're not going to be there, which is interesting when you think about the fact that last year with the Jeff Keighley Summer Beachapalooza or whatever the hell, that like Activision seemed to be like a big supporter of that one. So I wonder if they are just all in on the Keighley camp and kind of turning their back on the ESA, but because that's where they revealed, you know, Tony Hawk, I think they had Crash News and stuff like that, but EA and Activision aren't on board for E3, but they were on board for Keighley. So I don't know. Like, do you think that this means we're going to get press conferences that are going to be like E3 branded? I guess so. Like in my mind, sorry, I'm rambling, but I'm trying to still work through that idea of like, what does the E3 really mean? Does it just mean that we're going to have these press conferences from Nintendo and Xbox in that window that will have an E3 logo on it, but it's still just going to be streamed from their official accounts, like a normal big thing from them?
Yeah,
I want to see a fake stage.
Yeah, it would be nice.
Green screen. I haven't seen like what the commitment involves, but it does seem like it's just going to weigh the whole show more towards conferences than ever, which is, I think, have always been kind of the main event for a lot of the viewers, like the people who can't go, obviously. That's always been, okay, you watch the press conferences and then over the course of the next week, you see like more details trickle out as people get interviews and have like get to play the demos, right? And that seems like they're basically just kind of not having those latter parts. It's just like, it feels to me right now, having not seen, you know, whatever like this version of E3 entails, it just feels like these are a group of publishers who've agreed to have conferences that are E3 branded on, you know, within a certain time frame.
Right.
And I think the companies that haven't opted in, you know, Sony and Activision, they can just do that anyway. They can just say hey, a week ahead of time, we're going to throw up another Death Stranding trailer, you know, like whatever they have in mind. And that'll be E3 without, you know, having to pay the ESA, which is, I'm guessing, what they'd have to do. The bigger bummer to me is that it feels like this kind of almost necessarily pushes out a lot of smaller games. So like, there will probably be like the mix stream, right? Or something like that. But I think for a lot of mid-tier publishers, like the kind of publishers that you just kind of wander into an appointment, I've had the few years I've been to E3, there have been like, oh, I'll just go and see this booth and check it out. That's like the first time I ever saw like Ashes or Remnant. And I was like, this could be pretty cool. And I just randomly walked into an empty booth because there was no one there because it was really early. And I played and it was like, oh, this could be pretty cool. So you're not going to get that discoverability from people just randomly having, encounters with the stage. And it doesn't seem like there will be a ton of opportunities for interviews. So like one of the most interesting things is seeing like, oh, here's how this Nintendo person answered this question from, some minor outlet. And that's what ends up giving a lot of the minor outlets traffic that they otherwise wouldn't get, is like, oh, they asked a really interesting question and it led to a cool quote.
Yeah, and so on the official site, they phrase it in a weird way, saying there's going to be like multiple tiers for the media. So, quote, there are various levels of access, including special programming specifically for industry professionals, publishers, media, influencers, and fans.
Yeah. So it seems like an even more locked down version of those same opportunities, right? Because like, even though like, hey, this person's not going to answer this question, it just seems like they can even more thoroughly control the conversation about their games, right? So which gives the media in that situation less power than ever. So in a way, it almost seems like this is giving the publishers more of what they want, which is a more tighter control over what happens during the event.
Well, and I wonder, I mean, they say that companies like Microsoft and Nintendo are on board, but they've been doing their own streams this whole time too. And I wonder if there's any kind, like, what stops Microsoft from saying, yeah, okay, just like do the 2 or 3 presentations that we did, 3 weeks earlier, and just repeat them so that we're part of this, like we're technically part of E3 and we have an E3 presentation. I wonder how many big announcements either of those companies are going to save specifically for this and not just do in a Nintendo Direct or one of Xbox's.
Well, that's what I want to try and figure out, is that idea of like, if you're Microsoft, why not do it that week of June? Like, it's going to help elevate your message a little bit compared to doing your own event at a different time and then recycling trailers during E3. It's like, if you're going to have an event in the summer window anyway, why not aim for this just to try and get any extra boost that the branding of E3 will have?
They could, but at the same time, like, I guess that's the same kind of argument. You could have used that argument for the past couple E3s that everyone opted out of anyways. Like they seem to find extra value in just doing their own thing and having complete control over whatever that is. Yeah. As opposed to being part of this. But it really feels like kind of the heart of what was valuable about E3 is missing from this. I think part of that is the interviews, which maybe they'll have. That sounds like a nightmare to have all these different tiers, and they're going to be trying to line up, if they're even going to try to line up online interviews for that. But then it's also, all of the hands-on impressions that come out of E3. Like that to me is the bulk of the real kind of E3 coverage. We can sit in on a stream and kind of, make comments about what we're seeing as it's happening. But the real value is going out and playing all those games and then giving those impressions afterwards. And that seems to be completely absent unless companies are lining up demos that just anyone could play that would go up during E3. But that's a much larger commitment again. And I don't know how many of the companies that are participating in this are taking it that seriously.
Yeah, and you think of, that was definitely a big push for Keighley's to have like playable demos launching on Steam for Summer Game Fest and all that type of thing. And I haven't seen that messaging coming from the ESA about trying to sync up with getting more demos out into players' hands. But maybe they'll make a push for that. That'll be one of those weird media tiers, is you'll have exclusive demos or something. But at that point, I think we're all in a phase where it's like, just let everybody play that. Just release a demo on Steam and call it good.
Yeah, and if you're one of the developers or publishers, you're not going to make an online demo just for, like some special tier that the ESA is trying to shovel at you. Like, just, release it for everybody. That's going to get you much more coverage and buzz for your game.
Especially, yeah, like the gatekeeping of who would even get to see that demo. It's like if they're letting all influencers in, then at that point, it's not like there's a matter of, oh, this demo isn't quite ready, so we only need this select group of press that won't just, attack us for the demo being buggy and everything like that. It seems like it's kind of game on no matter what, so it might as well just completely open the floodgates. But it is going to be weird, like you said, having these companies pivot from, it seems like last year, really trying to ramp up on their own efforts. I mean, Microsoft had that big stream in July. And so it's like, okay, I guess they'll just maybe slide that level of announcement back into June. Because remember they said with that Microsoft stream that we're going to be coming at you monthly with new info, and it kind of has petered out. And so maybe they realized that that kind of messaging was harder than they realized. But the one I'm fascinated by is...
Oh, crap, we need new info every month now.
Yeah, show another plant in Halo Infinite, for the love of God. But Ubisoft, I think, is really interesting, where last summer they launched Ubisoft Forward, and they had one in July and September. And at the end of the September one, they're like, hey, stay tuned for another Ubisoft Forward in the future. And so that's going to be that strange thing of like, are they going to do one again? Or at this point, since they're on board for E3, will they just save that and then just call it Ubisoft's E3 Ubisoft Forward, and that'll just be the branding continuing forward?
I mean, I really wonder what they have to pay the ESA to be a part of this. And I would imagine, I'm not a giant company that can just throw money at whatever I want, but I would have to imagine at some point you have to be like, look, we got to do all this work to stream this. Why don't we just go on YouTube and stream it ourselves and make it our own event? Like, what do we need the ESA for at this point?
Yeah.
This just feels like it's about 2 years too late. Like Keighley has put together a summer kind of, multiple streaming thing. What is the ESA's role in this?
Janet, that week of June, or let's say early June, where do you think your hype levels will be at for E3 2021?
I don't think I'll be as excited as I traditionally am, because I am not confident that they can pull off the same energy that they have in the past.
Yeah.
Because it is different when it's like an in-person event that is streamed versus like a bunch of companies. I mean, they're basically, essentially everyone's going to be doing what Nintendo already has decided that's going to do. Like, Nintendo hasn't been physically present via presentation for a number of years now. They essentially just do a really good direct and then that's their E3 presentation.
Yeah.
But again, Nintendo's kind of honed that in and really mastered that, as far as other companies, I think, have struggled to, produce things at that level. I'll still be excited because it's like the big week of news, and it's from like, as much as the ESA and E3 gets a lot of criticism for having fallen off, like, you're too expensive, what do you really do? There's like a certain cachet that only E3 has. Yeah. Like, even with no shade to Keighley, but like Summer Game Fest activity, campgrounds, whatever, like that's still kind of growing and developing, and like he's working to create that. I do think that, there's a chance that he could get to that level. I mean, I think with the Game Awards, like, when you think awards in video games, you think the Game Awards. I mean, sure, there's DICE and other things too, but like that is the event. And he's really like honed that in. As far as like big presentations, I don't think he quite has done that yet in the way that E3 has. Like E3, what is it? It's E3. Like, it doesn't need to, it's not so much they do something so special or so amazing, but like that is E3. That is the thing that we all like look forward to in terms of coverage. Like, I saw a lot of people talking online, like, will you care about E3 if it's online? And I'm like, anyone who says no is just lying, because like, if you're media, if you do the kind of stuff that we do, you're going to be talking about it. It doesn't matter if I'm like, it's not the same. It is the event. It is the big thing. It's the one thing that, like, no matter how long, arduous, or inevitably boring it ends up being, you're still going to be tuned in the entire time because it's E3. Like, it's the big show. And I think even as it's starting to sort of peter out, it still remains that. I think it's going to take a number of years of middling content for it to lose the cachet that it has, even if you say like it's washed. Like, it's washed the way Starbucks and McDonald's is washed, in that it's not, because it is the big brand. Right.
Yeah, completely. And you're in LA. Like, you could have the real E3 experience of like going to the convention center and then watching all the press conferences on your phone. That would feel cool.
I literally just moved here like last summer or something. I don't know. Time is weird. And I was like, oh, the Game Awards is here. I've always wanted to go. COVID, and it's like same thing for E3. And I've actually only been to one in-person E3, so I think if they pull off the presentations in the same, like, at least grandiose way, like I would, I joked like I want to see a fake stage, but I kind of do. Like I want to feel like when I log in to watch E3 online, I want to feel like I did when I watched it before I went there in person, where it's like, okay, and a lot of times when you go there in person, like you can't necessarily watch those presentations live either. Like a lot of times you're at like a hotel room, or like IGN kind of rents a workspace, and we're just watching it on like a bigger screen than we would be in our apartments. So I think if they pull off some of like the grandiosity of the presentation, it could have some of that feel, bring like, that's something that's fun about E3 that I hope they still have. Like I want to see silly, goofy, over the top stuff, right? I want to see some celebrity walk on stage and some fire come out of a cannon. I want to see a car made of Lego. Like I want some of the sparklers. If they do that, I'm not really gonna. It is true that there is like so much value in highlighting indies and in the interviews and in like the journalism that goes on at E3. But also, like from a fan perspective and a viewer perspective, it is going online and watching like a big deal presentation and seeing your favorite outlets respond to, how was it? Do we think this was enough? How do we feel about that? It's all of that. So I think as long as they maintain a little bit of the grandiosity, it'll feel pretty similar to what we're used to, with maybe a little bit less coverage depending on amounts of interviews and access to games.
Right. Okay. What about this though? Ricky Winterborn here submitted a question for later on in the show, but let's get to it right now. He says, what would be fun is if E3 was a giant VR event. I know people have tried these, but maybe in a few years when the technology is better, walking around a crazy video game lobby where companies create virtual booths would be an amazing thing for the common folk. We could try demos with a controller, then mingle with people outside a kiosk to chat about the game. I do think there's something there. I don't think the ESA can get it up and running for this year, but I like that idea.
No, honestly, they blew it. They should have just had it in Fortnite.
Oh my God. That's such a stupid joke, but at the same time, honestly.
No, I'm serious.
That is genuinely a great idea.
If they did that Travis Scott concert or whatever in there, just...
Okay, did y'all watch that Travis Scott concert?
It was cool.
Good.
It was
real good.
Like, I'm saying that would have been the platform. Why not?
How bizarre.
Like a giant Phil Spencer can just...
Hey, I mean, realistically, Keeley was in... I hate this world, but I love it at the same time. Keeley was in Fortnite already, right? Like he did like that Q&A at some point. I remember seeing Keeley in Fortnite. I don't remember where or what state of mind I was. But at the same time, like maybe he's trying to line that up for Summer Game Fest. Like I think that might be an easier pull, is just like the one-on-one connection between Epic and Keeley versus the ESA trying to wrangle like, okay, Microsoft, you have to demo the new Rare game at this kiosk in Fortnite. That is such a stupid idea, and I won't be able to stop thinking about it now.
Yeah. Is it that hard to wrangle, though, if you can be like, okay, Microsoft, you have to take whatever middling demo you have and do it in the biggest platform for gaming where everyone already is.
And then it'd be like streaming the demo through Unreal, no matter what engine the game was made at. Like the tech of it would be so cool.
I mean, it's just a video that they'd play on like a big screen in a Fortnite thing.
That seems more realistic. And like, and they have as the announcer for the big press conferences, they just have Emperor Palpatine.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I am alive.
Demo at E3.
We did it. We fixed E3.
Or it's just like they just get Travis Scott back, and he between songs, he's like, "Oh yeah, here's the release date for Mario Odyssey 2. All right, here's my next song."
Which reminds me of a little ditty. Not Diddy Kong, mind you. Here we go, from the top. 1, 2, 3. Anyways, that's E3 2021. We'll be covering it in whatever form it takes here at MinnMax. It should be a fun time. And then for sure, we'll be sending Leo to E3 2022. Count on it. We need to get that baby boy to E3.
Poor Leo.
Outriders, everybody. Came out April 1st on a bunch of different platforms, but it's on Game Pass now. Square published it. People Can Fly developed it. They made Gears of War Judgment, Bulletstorm. What other things am I thinking of and forgetting? Painkiller. They helped on Fortnite a little bit. But Serial, you've been playing it for a review?
Yeah, I'm reviewing it for Polygon, and the review should go up sometime this week. But yeah, I've finished the campaign. There's like some post game kind of like run, these expedition missions over and over for better loot, but it has a campaign that, tells a story from beginning to end, and I've finished that.
Okay. I started it last night. I don't know, where you're at, Jeff and Janet, but I had the sensation of like, it's very much not my type of game, but I was enjoying it a lot more than I expected. I don't know where you all are at.
Yeah, I feel like around the time the beta came out, there was, that it went kind of viral for the wrong reasons, where there was that like, oh, they have a cutscene where you jump across a gap and that's it, which in context like makes way more sense than I think that video kind of leads you to believe, because it's literally like enter this instance zone where this mission happens. It's like you can't really think of it as like, oh, like it's like a campaign where you're exploring a single world in one kind of continuous session. It is like a Destiny-like in a lot of ways, right? Even though they say it's not a live service game, but I think all that really means is that they don't have a roadmap for future content updates, because you still connect to a server, and it's the only way you can play is if you're connected to that server.
I am so fascinated by that idea, because it very much playing it, it's like, oh, this is Gears of War Destiny. And so I wonder if it's just a scaling of the budget, or maybe Square got scared after the commitment that it took to make Avengers a live game, where they were gearing for this to be a live service game. Then they're like, let's just scale it back a little bit here.
Yeah, it seems like a weird overcorrection after seeing the response to Avengers, like not being or people not wanting this to it to be a live service game. I think they looked at their next big release and said, okay, well, let's pivot. Let's give gamers what they want and say it's not a live service game. But this is definitely like them overcorrecting, because this is totally a game that would be good as a live service game.
Yeah.
Because there's not, a cast of characters that you can get attached to, and it totally does have this endgame move that would be really well served by future content updates. And I think those loops are a lot stronger here. But like putting that stuff aside, I think. There have also been like some technical issues. I've crashed a couple times, and I'll get into some of the matchmaking stuff later. But I think as a whole, I think it works pretty well as one of those loop-based games. Like I think the shooting is fundamentally like solid enough that it's fun, and the loot I think is maybe the most surprising part about it. I think it's actually it kind of gives Destiny a run for its money in terms of like what it does with loot.
Really?
In Destiny, I think the coolest guns are the exotics, right? Because you can only equip one of them on your toolkit at a time. Because they have like this, like, hey, this gun creates a black hole whenever you whenever you get a headshot and stuff. But the legendary guns are like, well, this one reloads really quickly. And so like the purple tier guns are kind of boring, and the exotics are all the cool, those are the ones that gives you all the cool buffs.
Right.
Outriders gives you those cool buffs way earlier, and they're more prominent in that, like, I was playing as a pyromancer, which is kind of like a fire-based class, and they have a thing where you can siphon. You have a skill that lets you siphon kind of health from people, but you latch onto one target. And then one of the perks from a legendary gun can be like you attach yourself to two targets, which is like a pretty big deal. There's straight up a perk that you can get across a random sniper rifle that is an exotic in Destiny, where every time you get a headshot, a bolt of lightning comes down. That's a thing you can just find pretty regularly on a bunch of different guns, which is actually like a really cool thing.
Yeah.
And then like some of the better guns have two perks. And so like you can build your character a lot more, like with a lot more finesse, I think, than you can even Destiny, where it's like, okay, you equip 3 out of like, I think 7 skills at a time. So you can say like, I'm going with the thing that lights my bullets on fire, the magic siphon, and like a bomb that kind of turns everybody to ash. So I'm now looking across every gun that I get a particular perk that enhances those weapons. So you're really attempting, like you pay a lot of attention to what you're getting, more so than even Destiny. And I think that stuff is really cool. I don't think the shooting is as good,
of course,
but the way you can build your character, I think, is actually like surprisingly well-rounded. And that has been, I think, the most surprising thing, is how good of a loot shooter it is.
Yeah. Janet and Jeff, where are you guys at with this thing?
Well, just to start off, what is everyone's class?
I went the pyromancer as well, but I
also went pyromancer.
Oh, really? Oh, man. Because my logic was like, well, other ones are very cool. Like Trickster seems badass, like the close range.
That's me.
Jeff,
what are you?
I'm the Trickster.
You're Trickster? You're the Trickster. Okay.
Yep.
It could have been an all pyro, like,
yeah, you blew it, dude.
Squad up with an all pyro roster.
It seemed like the best for like solo play, where I'm like, I don't know how much I'm gonna be playing with people, so it seems
that's
the way
what
to go.
Okay, yeah. That was my logic too, as well as like I I'm with you, Hanson. Like, this is not my type of game. I streamed this on Friday when it had like officially come out.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't normally play the shooty shoots. That was the title of the stream, and I think I lived up to that title as I struggled my way on normal difficulty. But it's not normally my type of game, but I found myself really enjoying it. And I think funnily enough, like the shooting not being as good does benefit you if you're not a shooter traditionally, because when you don't play, shooting specific games and you only play games that have guns, you don't really notice the nuance of like good or bad shooting, which is nice when you end up encountering games that maybe the shooting isn't quite as good and it's easier to do and pick up. Yeah. So like I found the shooting pretty intuitive, and I really love the abilities. Like I kind of stayed away from all the info on this game, and I didn't play the beta. I just wanted to jump in and see what it was like to go in cold. And I played Pyro because it seemed, one, the best for solo play, and two, like a more basic character. Like the other ones felt like a lot more strategic. Like, are you good at close range? Are you good at being a tank? I'm like, no, and I can't shoot. Okay, Pyro seems like it's just enough of the abilities to really just like jank our way through.
Yeah, I can light people on fire pretty well. Yeah, that's kind of my thing.
Exactly. It's like, okay, then it's like, okay, you get your health regen from close range, like locking into targets, you know, and like using your abilities. I'm like, good, because like I can't aim any of these guns. Let's go. I just start lighting everything on fire. And yeah, it's really satisfying. Like the ability gun combo really helps because you kind of can just like, especially as Pyro, just switch off quickly from one or the other. And since like attacking with abilities isn't really like, doesn't have anything related to shooting at all. So it kind of helps like spread out the type of gameplay that you're doing. For me, as someone that isn't traditionally a shooter person, though I have played some shooters. I went through Halo 1, I went through Gears Ultimate Edition, but I did both of those with a player, like my friend who loves both those games and was like, let's go on a journey. And I'm like, sure, just sort of aimlessly.
Well, that's the weird thing
I
about
found it really fun.
Yeah, that's the weird thing about Outriders is like it's very much pitched as, hey, co-op, 3-person teams? Is that right, Serial?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But like that beginning is a lot more story focused than I imagined. It very much feels like that co-op game that you jump into with friends and be like, okay, it's just like another hour of cutscenes. We just got to get this story set up, because it really has to work its way from, okay, you're the last people sent from Earth to this new planet. You're exploring the new planet. But then we kind of want a post-apocalyptic, weird Mad Max vibe for stuff, so we have to get to the new planet and then set up the lore reason for why it jumps ahead 30 years so that it is all destroyed. It's a lot of setup.
It's. I think the story is maybe like one of the other surprising things about it is how much time it spends on that, because you'd expect with it being like a Diablo-like or a Destiny-like that you can kind of background that stuff and saying like, I'm not really paying attention to the story. I kind of have it. I'm playing a podcast while, playing this game. So it's like, whatever, the story's whatever. But this game really wants you to care about its story, because there are, a lot of cutscenes. They're like more kind of produced than I think you would expect. It's not just like, reverse shot of different characters talking. There's a lot of tracking shots, the voice acting, like it's really corny, but it's like better than you think
right.
It might be. And there's a lot of like, I got into a pretty good rhythm of like, I know what this character, like, here's a one-liner that's going to be like, I was good at predicting what people were going to say based on like having watched action movies and stuff. So it's kind of corny, but there's also like this really kind of depressing backstory that runs throughout the entire game, and it only kind of gets more depressing as you go. Oh, good. Because it's like, we tried to settle this planet because we just destroyed Earth. We're like completely done with it, and we can't survive here. And there's like, you find diary entries of like, well, only a certain number of people were able to go. Everybody else was clawing like tooth and nail to get on this ship. And we were literally like having to shoot people back to get on this ship on the last day on Earth. And so like you go in and then, it turns out we screw this planet up too. And so like everyone just it almost becomes like post-apocalyptic, like space Walking Dead, where it's like you run into a settlement and it's run by this tyrant that is just like, and at one point you're like, hey, like the only way you're going to get across this thing that you need to get through is by transporting a slave through it with me. And so you're like, well, this sucks a ton, but the path of least resistance, we're going to have to do this. And like later on, it just gets into some really messed up situations. And like there are diary entries everywhere that tell you like, here's how the government agency that is responsible for settling the planet just completely screwed over everybody by saying like, well, we don't have any supplies. We have to unleash all of these people from cryosleep. We don't have anywhere to house them. And so like, Yeah, it's just completely like really wants to get across like this is a really messed up situation.
You wouldn't believe it.
Yeah, so and you can't like it's harder to skip that stuff here than it is in other games, which is really weird for one of these.
Yeah, the somebody wrote in. I'm sorry, I didn't pull it, but somebody from the community submitted a comment on Patreon talking about how there's without spoilers here, there's a D-Day like mission in the campaign, like towards the middle of the campaign, and they're like, am I alone in thinking that was a really great mission? Like it really hit me harder than expected.
Yeah, it is surprising how much it has that stuff, like really dark, kind of like depressing fantasy. And there's also an extended bit about like that riffs on Indiana Jones's nuking the fridge thing.
Oh no!
Like, in a weird way, and like I don't want to necessarily spoil it, but it's like this extended joke where they're like, we watched that movie too, huh?
Cool.
And it's so like this game oscillates its tone really wildly, which is not the thing that I was expecting to talk about for so long with a game like this. But that to me ended up being one of the most fascinating parts is how everything wraps up, and it, like I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's weirdly fascinating. I wouldn't say that it's great, but it's like I've been thinking about this game's story more than I thought I would.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I went into it blind too, and that was kind of the first thing that really got me on board, because that sci-fi premise is one of my favorite premises of like we've destroyed Earth and like a small group has managed to escape and they have to try and rebuild civilization and like all the weird kind of things that can go wrong with that. And I felt like that, like they did a good job with the premise of it. Like the dialogue is iffy and the characters, can kind of be cliche or whatever. But I was really sold on that premise. And then when I got into the gameplay, like at first it was a pretty major disappointment, just because I was approaching it as like a Gears of War-esque, like sticky butt shooter. I'm going to hide behind this wall. Yeah. And I'm interested in hearing more about your guys' class, because the kind of long range combat I think really sucks, especially if you're playing on a controller on the Xbox. Like sniper rifles are just abysmal, and it was actively not fun when I started and I was playing that way. But my class especially, I guess, is more close range, and I realized that like I really have to get right up in their faces. One, that kind of fix any kind of, like aiming issues that you have. Yeah. But then all of my abilities were really interesting if I'm, like throwing myself right into, because my character class gets health back from every close range kill, and a lot, like I have a temporal ability that slows everyone within a certain area, and one of the coolest ones is if I aim at a character like from a very long range distance, I can automatically teleport right behind them and I'm facing them, and so it's just like instantly, any place where there are a ton of marksmen who are hiding behind cover, which is really annoying in this game. Like I can just say, okay, and then warp right behind them, shoot them with a shotgun because you can't miss at that point, and then just look at the next guy and warp to him.
That's so
and so
good.
That has been really fun. And then as Serial was saying, the loot system and the actual guns that I've gotten have really surprised me with how versatile they are and the abilities. Like I'm still using a cryo gun that I got within like the first hour because it just freezes enemies when I shoot them. And that's also another like amazing quality of life thing when the aiming isn't the greatest and you kind of need that breather when I'm trying to do close range, because my character is a bit of a glass cannon too. And so it's nice to be able to just like freeze a couple people and then use some of my abilities on them. So I have definitely warmed on the gameplay and it's gotten more interesting, but it's that I think the cover system and kind of the pedigree of being Gears of War-esque kind of builds a false impression, at least for my character class. Like it is much more of an active, almost kind of Doom-esque, like modern Doom experience of like, you really got to get in there.
Yeah, it is definitely more tuned to be like Doom in third person versus Gears of War.
Like you have to earn your health back by risking your own butt as you're doing it.
And so like I had like a very different experience playing on PC, because like I think the sniper rifles as a whole I think are bad, but like if I think there are certain like single action bolt ones that I think will one shot enemies with headshots, and you know it is easier to aim on PC. So like that was actually like I found sniper rifles really useful, but only certain ones. So it does kind of let you play different ways. And yeah, I think the way that fights roll out, the way there's like all this kind of like MMO-ish, like this person's going to do this attack in like this, you know, kind of area of effect that it shows you is kind of interesting. And the way it kind of mixes that like MMO stuff with shooter stuff, I think is really cool. But I think that one of the biggest drawbacks is that for a game that they're really touting as a multiplayer thing, especially later on when a lot of the bosses rely on that very classic MMO, like, okay, he's the, you know, I'm kind of distracting him while you guys shoot him in the back, basically, is the, you know, the classic thing. Tackling those bosses alone kind of sucks, especially because they do get very bullet spongy, and the matchmaking just isn't really there because right now, so the crossplay feature that they promised isn't working right now. Oh. And the only like randomly matching up with people sucks because your only option is to join a random game. And that means that either like they can be doing end game stuff or they can be doing early stuff, and it kind of, you know, caters that stuff to your level. So if you're like level 17 and progressing through the campaign, you're probably going to get someone who's around the same point. But they could also be doing like, oh, I'm doing a bunch of side missions I already did, or like they're not really, you know, like just it doesn't work the way you want it to. And it's really stratified because there are all these like challenge tiers and like the difficulty straight up gets harder as the game goes, because there's a bar that says you've unlocked the next tier of difficulty. Right. And if you don't opt out of that, the game is just going to get harder and harder until you basically have to play with other people. And so like that gives you better loot. But then there's a chance that like you're not going to match up with something like, oh, I'm at World Tier 9, join a random game, that person's at World Tier 7. I'm not going to get anything out of this. And so right now the best option is to either play with friends, which I was planning to do with someone who was playing on PS5, but the crossplay doesn't work.
And even I was trying to matchmake last night on Xbox One, and I couldn't find anybody, which seems insane.
Yeah, you have to set your game to open, and even then, like I had my game set to open the entire time and never found anybody. Like I found I think like one person randomly joined my game and then left. So like the thing to do now is to find a Discord and join people who are like constantly posting like, here's my level, here's my world tier, here's my class, and then you're like, okay, I'm gonna copy down your game code and I'll join you, and then we'll do one thing and then you'll leave. So right now it definitely has a lot of work to do in terms of fixing like the multiplayer stuff for a game that is very much pushing you to play multiplayer. Yeah. But I think the fun, like with a lot of these kind of early live service games, the fundamentals are there and they're good enough that I want to see them work that stuff out versus like, I'm just done. I don't want to play this game anymore.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm glad you brought up the world tier thing, because I too was playing it and it was like, man, this is getting like really hard and it's getting less fun. And then I looked and it's like, oh, well, I'm apparently on hard difficulty now because you've bumped me up like 3 tiers. But that was interesting because the game really was getting actively less fun. Like, and I was stuck in one kind of encounter where there was an altered guy who basically has superpowers, and just a ton of other lower level characters that I kept on dying to. And so I went in and I bumped it back down to, you know, like tier 2 or whatever. And it was so much more fun just because, again, all of my abilities are very close range abilities, and that is fun if you are just like completely mowing through the low level guys. And then, you know, like the one guy was a little more spongy and he took a little bit more to get down, but that was fun. If I'm jumping into those though, and like everybody is a bullet sponge to one degree or another, like that gets so much less fun. And so I'm in a weird spot where it's like, well, I keep on bumping it up because I want the better loot, but that is actively making it, you know, like less of this power fantasy. I'm running around with these crazy superpowers and I'm crazy overpowered. Yeah. And so I've kind of had to manually move that up and down depending on the encounters that I'm getting into.
Yeah, I turned off the like auto scale too. That was like one of the first things people recommended when I like boot up the game. They're like, make sure you turn that off. And then I like still somehow forgot to do it. So then I had to go back in and like make sure. Sometimes it turns back on weirdly. I don't know. It might be just been an early thing. But yeah, I'm playing on normal now, which is like challenging enough for me that I'm like, this is okay.
Yeah.
Because I think easy is a little too easy. Like for easy, I can kind of pretty much do everything. Which is impressive because I'm not good at the game, like at all. I'm still like very much learning the flow because much like y'all had mentioned, like I was like, oh, I'm gonna, my default, even though I don't really play shooters, is to like find cover and like, come up, like pop up. Okay, line up my shot. I always play on consoles, so it takes a while to like line up the shot, like wait. And then it's like, I'm just like, it's pretty dry to watch me play like any game that has an emphasis on shooters. But here, like, all enemies will instantly flank you. Like you cannot wait undercover. And if you're not getting flanked, you're going to get bombed. And if you're not getting bombed, you might, one thing that has driven me crazy is like when you're undercover, like you're, shielded and then you use an ability. There are some abilities I use like as Pyro where I will automatically go back into cover because I was in cover when I activated the ability. But then there's some that I'll just be standing up and I'm like, oh my God, please go down. Like, why are you just standing there? And then there's like these long range enemies that have like a really powerful shot that can like also kind of stun you for a second, leaving you more open to like, and it kind of becomes, it doesn't take long to die at that point because in order to regain health, you have to be aggressive. It very much is that in that control style where you have to go and push and fight to really make it. And being conservative will actually be the thing that kills you. And I think the biggest challenge, especially playing on solo, which like, I know there's plenty of people that would be like, well, it's meant to be solo. I'm like, well, then you should not. If you let me play solo, I'm going to play by myself. The biggest challenge, I think, is you'll have so many instances where there are just so many enemies that I think my biggest point of frustration has just been in having really long combat sequences that I like die towards the end of and then have to replay the whole thing again. And it's like, okay, we're going. And there's like one area specifically. I'm only, I think, maybe 6 hours at this point. I'm like level 7 or like 10, something in that range, like pretty early on. Like I did the first boss and like a little bit extra after that. And there's like one area where it's like, okay, there's like a bunch of electricity. And then there's this one big piece of cover that I'm slowly waiting for people to come out. And like, I've slowly gotten better at like reading the mini map and seeing who's there and like shooting my ability and then like pulling back and then kind of, learning the tool set. But I do think because there's so many enemies before you hit like a checkpoint, it can be really difficult when you're playing alone. And I don't think it really scales in that way. Like the difficulty and stuff does, and the loot just change if you play with more people. But like the general flow is very much meant for you to get through things faster than you can get through if you're playing alone, which I think can be frustrating. I personally never got to the point of like being super frustrated, but I did have a couple distinct moments of saltiness while playing this.
That's natural.
Yeah, and like playing multiplayer solves so many of those problems because if you die once in single player, you're done. You have to start the entire counter over. But even if no one revives you in multiplayer, you can get yourself back up. You have like one revive that you just have automatically, which I think if you had that in the solo mode would actually help a ton. In terms of like not making you feel like I need other people around. And also, like the enemies are really relentless in terms of both they run at you, like some enemies will just like, Serious Sam style, just run at you and melee you. But like also enemies, like they don't really miss much. It's more about like they pop out of cover, shoot you a bunch. Like they are these constant streams of fire. So just having another person to distract some of them works like to like kind of make you focus on like, okay, he's taking care of those guys. I'm taking care of these guys. So it's a lot more manageable, even if all the numbers are higher and you're taking more damage. So this is definitely a game where you want people to play with, but the game doesn't really let you do that as well as it should.
Yeah. So Outriders. So better than we thought, it seems to be a consensus.
I'd almost even say like find a group to play with or wait a couple weeks because it seems like at some point they'll probably iron out some of these launch issues.
Right.
But yeah, it's definitely a game that can be a little bit tough to get into. But yeah, I've been surprised at how good it is after it kind of was a laughingstock after that demo a little bit, where people were like, oh, this is good, but also this is one of these games is kind of dumb. I don't know.
Yes, but it's on Game Pass and it's available basically on everything except for Switch. Jeff, do you want to go take care of your beautiful little baby?
Yeah. Hey, one thing we didn't mention. Yeah. That's extremely hard when you can't pause a game.
Oh yeah,
even though I'm playing single player, it's like he'll start getting a little fussy and he'll be whining and I'll be like, I'll like run across the battlefield and try to hide in the bad guys will still get me. Just put in a pause if I'm playing single player.
It's so rude.
I don't have anyone else with me.
Rude. I hate that so much.
Yeah. Stefan Latchifer, wrote in about that, just furious that it doesn't have an offline mode. It would be nice. Maybe they could patch it in.
It needs a dad mode.
It'd be nice. Okay, Jeff, we'll see you later. Kyle Hilliard, welcome to the podcast, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
First time, long time.
I hope your mic gets better over time here. Kyle, I'm very curious to have you on. And I don't know if anybody else has played it, but Oddworld Soulstorm came out. It's the PlayStation Plus game on PS5 at this point. I streamed a little bit on MinnMax's Twitch account, and I was amazed by the number of people that jumped in there and they're like, what is this? What is Oddworld? I've never played one. I think like if you were a big fan of gaming for the PlayStation 1, it's like, Oddworld, of course, but trying to explain that to people who don't know Oddworld, like the most recurring question was, what is this tone? It's really a weird thing, but how much of a Soulstorm have you played at this point?
Just like the first level and a half.
Okay.
Like I'm probably almost done with the second level. But I think that's a very reasonable question from someone who isn't familiar with Oddworld. And it's one of the things I like about that series, you know?
It's just so unique.
Sort of created universe.
Yeah. Janet, Serial, are you Oddworld fans? Have you played Soulstorm at all?
I don't know. I'm one of the people that's like, what is Oddworld? But I've seen it a lot. I'm excited to no longer see it at press conferences. But I am going to play it. I'm going to dip into it on Friday on stream. And it is part of PS Plus, which is cool. So it's essentially free if you have PS Plus, which is really nice. But yeah, I'm excited because it's, you know, there's only a handful of big releases in any given month, and I would consider this to be one of them. So I want to see what this is, but I don't really know what it is. Is it like, is it still good? Is it kind of washed? Like, where does it land?
So genre-wise, it's puzzle platformer. But I don't know why I'm pausing when I'm saying that. Kyle, would you just call it a puzzle platformer?
You could say stealth, but you're solving puzzles, right? It's like there's like stealth things, but it's like
sneaky jump puzzles.
The solution is
the
solution is puzzle solving, you know?
Right. And so Oddworld Soulstorm, they announced it back in 2016. It's been a long road. It's wild because they remade the first game, Abe's Odyssey, with new and tasty, and that released in 2014. Then they followed it up by being like, and you know what comes after Odyssey? We have Abe's Exodus, which was the sequel back on the PlayStation. But when they announced this back in 2016, it's like, it's Abe's Exodus, but it's the Abe's Exodus we always wanted to make, because it turns out the Abe's Exodus they released on PlayStation 1 was made in like, I don't know, 6 months, 9 months, one of those insane things just to turn around. And it wasn't the true vision. It wasn't truly part 2 of Lorne Lanning and that team's vision of the Oddworld universe. So now Soulstorm has taken forever to come out, but it's like, hey, here is basically the Exodus that we should have made or wanted to make back in the day. Kyle, I like Lorne Lanning a lot, and I appreciate the world of Oddworld a lot. But after playing this for a little while, I hit that point of like, I'm glad this exists, but I don't know if Oddworld can really compete in this day and age as much as I want it to.
It's a little old school.
Yeah.
You know, to a fault. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm with you. It looks great. Those cutscenes look really good. The world of Oddworld I've always liked it because it's maybe it's not that rare, but it feels rare in that it's like a fully realized world that like doesn't even consider the idea of human beings. Like maybe that
Right.
exists in cartoon worlds a lot, but like this hits a weird level where it's like, I don't know, I would put like just below PG-13 or something on its rating. It has some profanity, but it's also silly and has farting sometimes.
But it's really like, dark. Yeah.
It can be really dark. Yeah, that the sort of second cutscene where you're given this mysterious object by a dying Oddworld inhabitant creature was like really, I don't know. I mean, I thought it was well done, if a little long, but like I was like, this is like much more like intense than I expected, you know. And but yeah, I'm kind of with you where I'm like, it's okay. I don't know. It just feels like it feels kind of old school, and sometimes that's a problem.
It's sometimes a problem, but it's cool that it exists. And I know that they have moved heaven and earth to make this game happen. The fact that Oddworld is still this indie organization, Oddworld Inhabitants, a developer. And I mean, I interviewed Lorne Lanning multiple times about this game in particular in the long run up to the release. And they have a really interesting dev kind of like a dev style for this game. It's a little bit like Ori and Moon Studios, where they don't have one central office, but unlike Ori, they're much more focused on like contracting and outsourcing. And so it's just a matter of like, okay, we need help with the art for this. Let's go to this team over here in this part of the world, then this team over here. So it's just been like this monumental struggle to wrangle all these pieces together to release this indie vision that is Oddworld Soulstorm. But it's a game where you're making your way through 2.5D. They're much more interested in like maybe systems this time around would be the better way to put it. Like you have the brew, which is very flammable. So you're lighting things on fire to solve puzzles. You're throwing basically water balloons to put the fire out, playing with that, trying to rescue other people that are in Abe's race, possessing the sligs, which is, I mean, that was the highlight of the original game, is praying to take over the mind of these weird creatures with guns, and then you get a gun for a little bit. But that's a little flavor on top. But I found myself playing this game, Kyle, and wondering the same thing I wondered with Kakarot, Dragon Ball Kakarot, which is a weird comparison. But in both games, I was playing, and then I was like, what is the good part? I'm playing it, I'm having a fine time, but like, I'm not really enjoying this part. What am I looking forward to? When is the satisfaction coming? It feels like one of those games where you're kind of going through the motions for the sake of going through the motions.
Well, the one thing I'll give you there is like, what are you looking forward to? It's very much a game that is level, impressive cutscene, level, impressive cutscene. At least I assume it is. I'm not as far as you. Maybe, I don't know. But like that is a very PS1 era style of game design.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we're going to have a level and then you're going to be blown away by the visuals of this cutscene. And then you're going to play a little more and you're going to be blown away by the visuals of this cutscene. It's like, you know, Final Fantasy sort of lived and breathed on that. And like, so I think that's what you're looking forward to. And I think there is a good story here. I think they've always done a good job of like establishing an intriguing mystery early. Like Oddworld, Stranger's Wrath also did a good job with that. Like you play that game for like half an hour and you're like, okay, well, I want to know what's going on here. And like, I feel that way about Soulstorm, where I'm like, I want to know what this thing is that he's received that's been teased through the first 30 minutes, you know?
The rabbit's foot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for Mission Impossible 3 fans.
Yes. So when you guys say that it's dated, what do you guys mean by that? Is it just the checkpoints are kind of spaced out?
That's definitely a thing. There's also
kind of obtuse. Like, what do you mean?
The puzzles are fine. I think it's a little clunky with the platforming. I mean, New and Tasty greatly improved upon the original, and this is maybe a slightly smoother version of that, but it's not... you got like a double jump now, but it's still running into those situations of, I'm trying to do this one thing. Abe, just climb down here and then jump over there. And it fights back a little bit.
It feels like a little unfair sometimes. There's these mines that you have to disable.
Yeah.
And there's like a timed button pressing, which like I think mechanically is like, okay, that's fun. You know, you have to like time your button presses to turn off these mines. But it's like, the window is so short, it's kind of inconsistent. I kept getting killed, which threw me back a significant amount. And like the levels feel like too long. You know, it's like things like that. It's just like a modern sort of pass on this game, I think would have made it a little more intuitive and maybe just made it a little tighter, you know?
Yeah, but at the same time, it's awesome that it was released. Hats off to that team for getting it out the door. And like, you know, if you're an Oddworld fan and you've been a big PlayStation fan, it is a cool idea to be like, oh, in the year 2021, here is kind of a sequel to Abe's Odyssey, the true sequel to Abe's Odyssey. And if you have PS Plus, you get it for free. But yeah, it's also on the Epic Game Store and also available on PlayStation 4. It's not just a PlayStation 5 exclusive, but Oddworld Soulstorm, everybody. All right, this is an odd one, odder than the Soulstorm. Apple Arcade. They've had... for me, it came out of nowhere. What was it, like Friday? At some point late last week, it's like, here's a bunch of new Apple Arcade games, which just seems like they've been doing for a while. But this one really turned my head just to be like, what is happening in Apple Arcade? I mean, Kyle, I think you also checked it out when it first launched back in 2019. The impression was like, this is pretty cool. We'll see where it goes. And I think they've quietly just been doing pretty cool things, but no one's really been focusing on it too much. I think that's largely coming from the press, where they haven't really had the resources to do a lot of reviews for these games. So it really feels like the Wild West of like, what are these new games on Apple Arcade? There's no reviews for it. No one's talking about it, but they're all surprisingly solid. It's really weird. But on Friday, they dropped a bunch of new stuff, including a new Platinum game serial called World of Demons, stylish action game, which I played.
It's like, is it developed by Platinum or is it kind of published by Platinum?
I believe it's developed by Platinum. Okay. But it's all about yokai. The art's great. It's a little bit slower than I expected, but World of Demons is that one. But the one I was very interested in is Fantasian. it's called. This is from Sakaguchi and Mistwalker Sakaguchi, the father of Final Fantasy. But it's, maybe you've seen trailers for this or screenshots for it, where it's a really fascinating idea where it's a JRPG where the world and the levels that you're running through are physical sets that they modeled and then took pictures of, just to give it like this really tactile feel, which is cool. Less cool when you're playing on your tiny phone, but the nice thing about Apple Arcade is you can play like, on a MacBook or something, which helps you see the details a little bit.
Or TV. If you got the little Apple TV.
That's
I was
true.
playing on the TV for all these games.
Oh, really?
Like, it'll be a console. Yeah, like my boyfriend had originally gotten the Apple TV. I don't know why. He's an Apple stan. I don't think he's gonna listen to this, so I can just drag him. It's fine. But like, it's really convenient for Apple Arcade because you can. It's literally like as if it was on a console because you can hook up any controller to it. And same deal goes for like Mac and all these other platforms. And you can hook up a controller to any device and play these games. But yeah, it really helps kind of just, there are people genuinely who are like, I just don't like playing on my phone. Totally. And my phone gets very hot because my phone is very old. So I understand. But there's some fun ways to sort of play it however you want to play it.
I think there's something weird too, where I've just had such a miserable time playing so many microtransactions filled garbage games on my phone. I mean, I just downloaded the Crash Bandicoot game on iOS whenever that came out, like a week and a half ago or whatever. And it's just a nightmare of different currencies and all that crap.
There's like these two like pillars of like mainstream mobile for, it's like so weird because like, you were mentioning like Apple Arcade doesn't really get a lot of coverage and stuff like that. And I think like for a lot of hardcore gamers, and by that phrase, I mean like people that regularly play new releases, maybe keep up with news. That's sort of what I think of when I think of like someone that's really intense into the hobby. Like if you're listening to the show, I would consider you pretty hardcore because you're spending time out of your week to like hear what other people think about games, keep up with the news. Like, I think that's a pretty intense level of being into the hobby. And I think for a lot of those players, they have only played two types of mobile games. The like very microtransaction-y, very mainstream mobile games, like, like, I don't know, Candy Crush and things like that, like the kind of really what you think of when you think of mobile, or really major mainstream publishers and developers trying to dip into the mobile space with IPs you already know and doing that poorly, and then they'll say, they'll kind of throw their hands up and say, mobile sucks. Like there's only two types of experiences and they're both bad. But like what's so cool about the Apple Arcade space is it solves what a lot of people have complained about. But then as usual, like not everyone wants to embrace a solution, which is don't worry about having to find what's hot on mobile. This is kind of a curated collection of at least solid games. Like I don't love everything on Apple Arcade, but like if you're looking for good mobile games, like start an Apple Arcade. It's the most affordable, easy way to dip into an excellent collection. Yeah, it's like for $5, then you get access to all these games, which is pretty crazy. But like, yeah, I think I still have like this weird sense memory of, for all these games, like I'm excited to play these games, I'm just desperate not to play it on my phone. Like I just need to play it on a MacBook because if I'm playing a game on my phone, I will automatically just always have that kind of like, I don't know, extra cynical layer just waiting for like, when's this BS gonna hit me? But like Fantasian, I'm actually really into it. So it's a weird idea where Sakaguchi produced it and wrote the story for it. It has a lot of Final Fantasy nods in there. I mean, the UI is very Final Fantasy. It does like the full Final Fantasy VII intro of like basically pulling back out of Midgar. There's the Master Sword character named Sid, except with an S, so legally distinct. There's like enough little fun nods there.
That's the Lost Odyssey approach. That's what that is.
Exactly. Yeah. Same studio, right? But then the weird thing is thinking about Sakaguchi, and the music is by Uematsu, who did all the Final Fantasy music, most of it at this point, I guess you should say. And so having like that original JRPG director and composer teaming up for this mobile JRPG with Fantasian, it reminds me of a game we've talked about on the show a couple times. We'll continue to talk about with another Eden, where it's like Masato Kato from Chrono Trigger teaming up with Mitsuda from the Chrono series and releasing their JRPG on mobile and now obviously on Steam. But it's weird to be like, oh, there's these kind of amazing partnerships and mobile is where these games are actually happening. But Fantasian, I'm looking forward to playing more because I enjoy what I've played so far. But Janet,
is it? Wait, step back.
Please.
Is it a turn-based, story-driven RPG?
It is exactly that. Yep.
Okay. Like it feels like what, closer to Final Fantasy VI or something? Are you like overhead, like controlling a pixelated character?
You're
on
overhead,
a map,
like on the phone, you're tapping where you want to go, or with a mouse you can click.
Okay.
I don't know if with a controller, I haven't tried it yet, if it's like direct control, but yeah, it's turn-based, old school in that way, but it's not pixel art or anything like that. Buckle up, Kyle. The main character, he's got some damn amnesia going on. So you're trying to figure out what's going on between these two worlds.
Does he wake up on a beach, though? I mean, that's...
No, he wakes up in a weird technical world. So...
Okay. All right.
It's Narita Boy.
It's basically Narita Boy. But yeah, that's Fantasian. You should at least look at a trailer for it because it's wild. But Janet,
check it out.
I think we've both been playing the weirdest thing, which is the new version of the Oregon Trail that Apple dropped on Friday, which, I released a documentary about the origins of the Oregon Trail last year. You can find it on MinnMax's YouTube channel or on TPT, the public TV website or whatever, but that's called Trailheads if you want to check that out. Right? Yeah, there we go. But this is a new version of the Oregon Trail in honor of its 50th anniversary, which is wild to think about. But this is from Gameloft, specifically Gameloft Australia, who has made versions of Oregon Trail in the past that have not been great. They've made a couple different versions, and I think the last version was basically just an Oregon Trail, Farmville, microtransaction, garbage town. But this is stripping it all out because it's Apple Arcade. But then it's also being produced by Houghton Mifflin Harcourt Productions, who own the rights to Oregon Trail at this point. And they're the people who I tried to involve in the documentary. And they said, we can't. We have other media obligations, which I'd imagine now is because they were creating this new version of the Oregon Trail. But this is a very much throwback to the Oregon Trail you remember on Apple II of, trying to get to Oregon, moving from the right to the left. You're going to encounter a lot of nonsense along the way. Janet, what did you think of the new take on the Oregon Trail?
So I'll take y'all through the whole journey. That was really just this morning because I woke up and I was like, I gotta play these Apple Arcade games because I had forgotten to pick them all up. I downloaded a bunch on my Apple TV. And then I was like, okay, Oregon Trail. And I started it up and I was sort of like underwhelmed. And I started to think, so I'm an Oregon Trail like stan, I would consider myself. Like, I love that game. It has gone on and off of IGN's top 100 game list for some time. I'm sad that it's currently off. I was like, damn, I was outvoted. Everyone's like, it was like, yeah, we respected what it was. Historically significant, but not fun to play today. And I'm like, I think it's still fun to play today.
It is kind of fun to play.
I'll go into the wagon any day of the week. Let's go. So I came in with high energy, high hopes. And I was like, I don't know. You start off in kind of a tutorial type area. And I was sort of playing through it. And I'm like, sure. Maybe this, maybe everyone was right. Maybe this isn't really fun in 2021. And then I get a little further in, it introduces some kind of, like additional layers of gameplay, like hunting. You kind of can move around. It's pretty rudimentary hunting, but it's just kind of something to do to kind of add to the gameplay. And I was like, okay, but then I got a little deeper in. I finished the tutorial. I'm in the town. I'm picking my party. Then like when they told me to pick my wagon, I was like, is this game of the year? And I am not joking. This is not sarcasm.
Wait, what?
I got hyped for this game. I think it's honestly awesome. I feel like if you like Oregon Trail at all, pick it up. It's as fun, if not more fun than I remember. Obviously, it's like a lot more modernized, and it has just kind of like, a nicer UI. You're sort of doing your inventory management, orchestrating how they fit into the wagon, all this stuff.
I mean, that's you're burying the lead here for Kyle and Serial. It's Oregon Trail, but it has Resident Evil 4's inventory system.
Yes.
And so, Kyle's downloading right now. So as like your wagon takes damage, it like takes out chunks in your inventory. And I don't know, have you found a way to repair it yet? I haven't been able to repair any of those holes quite yet.
You can get repair kits for your wagon, but I haven't fixed any of the holes. But like I think the thing that really makes it stand out is that it's also just like, it's a really nice looking game. Like, it's really beautiful. Like, when I think of like old school Oregon Trail, like what I would play in history class when my teacher didn't feel like teaching us anything, or we finished early, it's very rudimentary. You're kind of just trucking along and things happen and then you like react to those things. But here, like, it's just environmentally a lot prettier looking. You kind of see there's more to like look at when you do actions. So it makes the actions feel a little bit more meaningful to me. Like, it's easier for me as a player to connect to my actions because I'm seeing them like actually occur, even if the animation is like pretty minimalistic. I think my only big criticism of the game so far, I'm like 45 minutes in, is you have your party that you can pick. You can pick from like, let me say 6 characters or something. I don't remember the exact number. But when you meet people on the road, they're like the same character. And I'm like, y'all should have made this person, development is hard. But I felt like, okay, that's definitely Sarah from my party. But now she's Michelle, which is like, kind of takes you out of it for a second. But like, I had so much fun playing it. I was playing this morning and my boyfriend was sitting next to me, and then he started to get into it. We were making the decisions together. Like it still had all the joy and excitement of random inconveniences of travel, which sounds very dry, but like if y'all vibe Oregon Trail, y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. It's like, oh man, like now we have to do this. We have to pay the ferry. Do I haggle? Who do I want to have haggle? And then it also has like these sort of almost RPG elements of, okay, we'll have like Sarah haggle, and now she gets +2 of this kind of trait. So you can sort of start to craft your party that way. And then you start to think, okay, well, let me make it more balanced, because any second, maybe someone ends up dying. And then it's like, you have the classic, choices to make of, do I take the janky water? Do I not? Will I make it to the next town? You have like a map to choose from where you can uncover more trails. You can
like multiple
learn
routes.
more about the area.
Yeah.
It's so basically I can go on and on. It's just very layered compared to like the Oregon Trail that I think of, but it has the same core fun that old school Oregon Trail has. So
yes,
go download it. It's on mobile. I know you can listen and download at the same time. Please go play this game. It is awesome. Is it actually Game of the Year? Probably not, because that's just kind of extreme. But and I really like Bravely Default too, so I think that's still my favorite right now. But I absolutely enjoy, like, love the hell out of it. It also seems to have like additional runs you can do, like kind of weekly challenges. So like it just, I don't know how many hours I'll actually sink into it, because it seems more like just like a fun thing to do casually, but like I also think it fits mobile really well for that reason, and like iPad, like I'm excited. It's awesome. I think after this I'm just gonna play more. Like my boyfriend was like, I'm having a great time. He started downloading it. I was like, let's go. I'm all in on Oregon Trail 2021. Yeah, totally holds up.
Especially like last year, where I spent a lot of time thinking about Oregon Trail and spending so much time editing that documentary, just thinking like, why isn't someone, like, this is just a roguelike formula. Why isn't somebody taking this idea, making a new version of it? Like, the design sensibility is all right there and no one's doing it. And this absolutely feels like they have the design sense spot on. It feels like the Oregon Trail with like hints of 80 Days. I don't know if you played that game at all, where you're in the hot air balloon and giving those little narrative choices. But like having that aspect of smart design sensibilities, different systems packaged in here, it does elevate things so much. I mean, just the simple idea of, you're still watching the wagon, but now you're clicking on animals that you go by to give you more experience. Like they add silly things like forts are now fast travel points. You unlock different items by getting to Oregon. Like you mentioned, Janet, like they have like smaller tracks, but like there's still surprises in there that really crack me up, of just simple stuff, like stuff going wrong. Like you mentioned, Janet, where it's, okay, somebody was bit by a snake. Now you have to choose who in your party will suck out the snake venom. It's like, all right, I guess.
My only other beef is that you don't name anybody.
That sucks.
I always loved naming people to like go in the wagon. Like I remember like in college, like watching stuff on Twitch. One of my friends was playing Oregon Trail, and he's like, whoever's in the chat, like, sound off and I'll put your name in the wagon. And I was like, I got to get into this wagon.
Absolutely.
I was so into it.
I know.
So, I'm kind of bummed that you can't name your party members.
It seems like a weird choice. I don't know why they wouldn't let you name them.
I think the reason they don't want you to name them is because it seems like they have a lot more like thought in the characters, like in this iteration of Oregon Trail. Like you have someone like, I'm making up the names because I don't remember, like Sarah, and her background is in like, I don't know, knowing nature. And she's like really personable, but also kind of paranoid.
But
and then you have like Dave, and he's rich, and like, I'm going to roll with this rich dude, even though he looks like he's kind of an ass. And like, I think they have more kind of lore in there. So maybe they didn't want to have people.
But I assumed all those traits and stuff, I assume they're randomized about like, oh, this person's a minister, but oh yeah, Susanna's paranoid. It would just make sense that it would just randomize the traits for everybody. That seems like the smarter way to go, but that is kind of a bummer. But yeah, the repeated animations as well, or just the art for the characters. But it's still like, I made one run, didn't get all the way to Oregon, but I'm worried about, how it's all going to stack up. But like first impressions are like, they have the systems there in the way that I want them. The art, I think it's a weird distinction. I think the art is great, and I think the UI is really abysmal. It's like they have this amazing background artist for like the actual traveling and stuff. And then they tried to layer in like nostalgic blasts of like, here's that classic Oregon Trail green. And it's like, it does not work with your beautiful art style for everything else. So it's kind of like this ugly mishmash at times, just UI wise. But so the systems are all there, and I'm curious to see if they are as powerful as I hope they are and as dynamic as I hope they are. But like, it's by far the best version of Oregon Trail you can play right now. And I'm amazed and hope, like, I'm amazed it exists, and I hope that it's not just going to be lost to time. I could see this game, 5 years from now not being playable on Apple devices, and it'll just be this legend of, they actually made a real legit good version of Oregon Trail, and you can't play it anymore. So I hope that it's maintained and maybe even ported to some other place at some point. But Oregon Trail, everybody, still good. I don't know. Janet, anything else from Apple Arcade you wanted to hit up?
One thing I did dip into a little bit was Badland, which I think just is a recent release on Apple Arcade. At least I don't know if it's been out previously. It's sort of like the mechanics are just one button or one input tap. So you can like tap and hold to go up and jump up basically, or fly up, or you can like hit A if you're on a controller. In that sense, mechanically, it does remind me of Flappy Bird, like just the action that you're doing of trying to balance. But where it kind of gets a little bit fun is you have like these different abilities that will, so you kind of play as like this little black fuzzy orb. So you're sort of like a fly, but cuter looking. And you can like, there's like an ability that makes them create like multiple flies, or makes the fly really big or really small. And you're sort of going through these little environments, and you have these different like objects or obstacles. Like you might have a windmill that's very sharp, so if you tap it in the wrong way, you'll like die. It's also like an auto scrolling, so like you have to keep moving or else you'll die. And there's like no story at all, which I'm okay with games not having story, but I did feel a little bit like, oh, we're just going, like, we're here now. It's ready now. I did enjoy it decently, though. I think it's worth checking out. It does feel like it lent itself well to phone or iPad more so than like sitting down with like my, Xbox controller. Like it wasn't exactly that hardcore. And the thing that I found really striking about it is the art style. It's super stylized. It's very like silhouetted in the forefront, but has these very like lush foresty backgrounds. So I would say if you are down for like, I guess like if you like that kind of gameplay, like a basic like tapping, floating through an area, it's worth checking out, because I'm curious. I'm very early on, like only a few levels in, but I'm looking forward to seeing the different weird like things that occur that change your character. I guess I would describe the power-ups as reminding me of the gameplay of Loco Roco, where you touch something and get big, or you get small, and you're sort of traveling through a course. It's not as good as that game, but it's just a little bit reminiscent in terms of the joy of changing as you traverse an environment.
Yeah, this is so weird. Yeah, I mean, it sounded familiar. Yeah, I played it. It came up back in like 2013, and so I'm curious.
Yeah, but it's just on Apple Arcade. So
weird. They just threw it on there. Oh, that's cool.
I think there's a sequel even. I'm surprised the sequel's not on there.
Right. Yeah, but yeah, Badland is that one. Kyle, do you know how this whole thing operates? Do you know how we exist?
I think people offer us money. Out of the kindness of their hearts, but I don't know where
offer
they put it.
us money
somewhere or something.
Hey, patreon.com/MinnMax with two N's is where you go to support MinnMax. We appreciate all the support to help us keep growing. And we want to thank some of our biggest supporters, like Another Eden, The Cat Beyond Time and Space, the game that I just mentioned that was on mobile, still is on mobile technically, but is now available on Steam. This is from Masato Kato. He's the director this time around. He is the writer for Chrono Trigger. He was the writer and director for Chrono Cross. He wrote for Xenogears, Final Fantasy VII, amazing legacy, and his new single-player JRPG is now available on Steam, and it is free. It is free, where you can unlock additional characters if you want to, but again, shockingly unobtrusive microtransactions in there. And it's soothing. It's every once in a while soothing just to start a peaceful JRPG, and that's what I really enjoyed about Another Eden on Steam. The story is about time travel, so you expect, okay, it's going to be very Chrono Trigger, but there's still a surprising amount of Chrono Cross Easter eggs in there as well, which is fun to see. You got a little cameo from a Mojo-like character, which as a Chrono Cross fan, put me out of my mind. I was so excited. So you can go check out Another Eden on Steam. You can follow the link below, which is bit.ly/MinnMax if you want a direct link there. Suriel, what is that sound? That's right, everybody. It's the Rainmaker. This month, MinnMax is supported by our friends at Rainmaker.gg. Rainmaker is the all-in-one platform for streamers, developers, and publishers. If you're a streamer, Rainmaker gives you insight on your channel's performance, access to game keys from the world's best publishers and indies, and a full suite of streaming tools, including overlays, tipping services, chatbots, alerts, and more. For devs and publishers, Rainmaker provides powerful tools that help you analyze game performance and discover creators on the world's biggest streaming platforms. Plus, their key campaigns feature makes it simple to get your game into the hands of thousands of content creators across the globe. Head to rainmaker.gg/MinnMax to learn more. That's rainmaker.gg. Thanks for your support, Rainmaker. Also, tabletop gaming. Asmodee and Unexpected Games wants everybody to know about The Initiative, which is a brand new co-op game, 1 to 4 players, takes 30 to 60 minutes to play. The Initiative is a cooperative board game of clever strategy, code breaking, and visual storytelling. Hang on for this one, Kyle, it gets weird. The story is told through a 42-page comic book, and a page is read before each mission in The Initiative to set the stage and show the consequences of your actions. And then the gameplay itself is a unique blend of strategy and puzzle solving. I'm very curious to check this out. So it takes place lore-wise in 1994. 4 teenagers find a mysterious game at a yard sale. As they play it, they discover it is strangely connected to their lives. Secrets and mysteries are hidden in every corner of the game, from strange messages left by the previous owner of the game to hidden codes that link together to form a giant meta puzzle. It is from legendary game designer Corey Koneska, who worked on Battlestar Galactica, the board game, which I know is very popular, Mansions of Madness, Star Wars Rebellion, Star Wars Outer Rim. So you can check that out. It's called The Initiative if you're interested in a new co-op board game. Also, here's the deal. They're very generous over there at Unexpected Games and Asmodee. And so we're doing a community giveaway for The Initiative. So if you want this tabletop game only within the United States, I'm sorry, they can only ship within the United States. Here's all you have to do. Tweet out your favorite MinnMax content, could be anything. Tweet out your favorite MinnMax content and include the hashtag MinnMax Initiative. No space. MinnMax Initiative. 2 N's, of course. And then we'll randomize it and you can win this tabletop game, The Initiative. So thanks so much for helping to share MinnMax content, and we hope you win. So hashtag MinnMax Initiative. Thanks, everybody. Also, thanks to IM8bit. They want everybody to know that Etherborn is available on Switch and PlayStation 4. This is the IM8bit exclusive edition of Etherborn. Comes with a fold-out poster with art by Tony Mole, O-sleeve art, a reversible cover sheet, and it's from Altered Matter and Acapara Games. So check out Etherborn on IM8bit's wonderful online store, where you can go and use the promo code AprilFools, one word, for 10% off everything under $100 in IM8bit's wonderful online store. So support them because they support us. And they support us and the community by giving something away every single week. This week it is Old Man's Journey, the double vinyl soundtrack for the fantastic soundtrack to Old Man's Journey. So they're going to be shipping that out to whoever we deem has the question of the week. The finest question submitted over at patreon.com/MinnMax with 2 N's. Support us at any tier. You can submit a question every single week, potentially win. Also, you can compete in Trivia Tower and win even more. So thanks everybody for supporting us. Should we get to these questions?
Do it.
Do it.
Harrison Holt McHale submits a great question on Patreon. He says, "Hi, folks." Hello, Harrison. I've just seen a fan-made cutscene of the famous ladder scene from Metal Gear Solid 3, made from the ground up in Unreal Engine 4. Hell yeah. I'm glad they're putting those tools to good use. It has set me off once more thinking about how timeless that game is. Am I wrong in thinking that timelessness and great are similar but distinct characteristics? It seems like timeless games are usually great, but great games aren't necessarily timeless. I think that's correct. Are there any games in the last 5 years or so that the panel think are timeless, that we'll be talking about 10 to 15 years from now? I think they are separate, great from timeless. I love Metal Gear Solid 3. I would not call that a timeless game. I think all the Metal Gears are pretty timed.
I think they're specifically of their time. That's what makes them great.
Yes.
But I guess, I don't know. Like, what does timeless mean in terms of, like, is that like a, hey, everyone's always talking about it, or like this is a game you can play that never ages?
I think it's that. I think 15 years from now, I think what is going to be from this era that is going to be timeless. And I think Kyle and I are probably thinking of the one correct answer for the most timeless game of this era. Okay, say it on the count of 3. Ready, Kyle? 1, 2, 3. Inside.
Breath of the Wild.
Oh, no. I mean, Inside.
I actually was trying
right?
to think of. I was trying to like, what is the worst answer? I should have said Balan Wonderworld. No, Inside is actually a better answer, honestly. I think because it kind of uses older mechanics and just knocks them out of the park.
It's the most rock solid game maybe I've ever played. It just feels like that entire game is made out of clay instead of pixels. It's just such a weird thing.
But yeah, so I that is actually a great answer. Yeah, but yeah, I think like Breath of the Wild and God of War are games that will continually be discussed for a long, long time. You know,
I think so. But I could definitely see. I mean, we'll see what the sequel looks like. But I could definitely see a world where 5 years from now, even playing Breath of the Wild is like, oh boy, really showing its age in a lot of key areas.
I can see that with God of War as well. I could like, I even playing it, I was like, I'm like, it's entirely possible that a sequel, not maybe story wise, but like mechanically kind of makes this game irrelevant in terms of like, oh, like the sequel does everything this game does, but better. And I think Breath of the Wild, I think will always be kind of a unique object, but that's also a case where Breath of the Wild 2 could come out and mechanically kind of fix some of the things that irked people.
Yeah, things that we didn't even realize were like problems, you know?
Yeah.
I think to be timeless too, you need like a certain kind of art style. Like I think Breath of the Wild's art style doesn't age timelessly. Like I think a Zelda timeless art style would be Wind Waker. Like that game still looks really pretty, but that game didn't come out recently, so it doesn't count for the question. Yeah. And then I think stand the test of time is a third idea. Like I think a lot of those games will stand the test of time. Like Breath of the Wild, I think will still be an amazing game to play 5 years from now. What Remains of Edith Finch, same deal. But I think art style wise, we'll be able to be like, oh yeah, this is an old game. It looks like a game of like that general era, while inside the art is a little bit more timeless, and it's a good enough game that it will stand like the test of time. The first thing I thought of was something like Minute or Baba Is You. Like those are great games that look like they look simultaneously old and ageless because they don't have like they're not going for like realism or mimicking a certain style, like something like Fortnite where it's very like stylized in a way that's of an era. So I think those are timeless from that standpoint. But Breath of the Wild already looks kind of a little bit older to me already because it wasn't, and the Switch isn't very powerful either, so that doesn't really help its like visual age.
I'm not surprised to hear you say that, honestly, because I think it does have a cell shaded style that I think will last. But
I think the art style.
I'll meet you back here in 10 years.
I mean, I remember thinking that.
Does this look old? Like
I remember when Skyward Sword came out, thinking like, oh, that stylization, like that's an interesting look, and I don't think that has really aged too well. And I think Breath of the Wild is definitely a better game artistically.
Line that the Wii never crossed, you know.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, I think like just Link's model in particular, like just because it is such flat colors, it is basically cell shaded, but with a little more detail. I hope it will continue to look great.
Yeah,
I would say that probably two of my favorite games for the last year. I think Kentucky Route Zero and Disco Elysium are probably games that I think probably won't age any more than they already are, because I think they don't look immaculate or whatever, but like I think Kentucky Route Zero has a very specific art style, and I think like whatever qualms people might have about either of those games, I don't think is like a matter of like, well, in the future other games will improve on these systems because they are kind of unique things unto themselves. Like I don't think anyone's going to make like a better version of reading or like or like even the
they did. It's called TV
in this game.
Yeah.
Atrocious.
And I think the checks, the way like everything is done through like RPG checks in Disco Elysium, I don't think is a thing. It's like, well, everyone does that better now because it's such a wild thing to do in the first place, that I think like 20 years from now you can see that that was a quirk that so many like people didn't really improve on, so still kind of a thing that defines that game. So I think both of those games are kind of games that I think you will be able to go back to them years from now.
Yeah. Tom Blackburn submits a comment over on Patreon and he says, hey friendos. Hi, Tom.
Hi.
I wonder if anyone will try to compete with Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo ever again. If Google can't figure it out, who else do you think has a real shot at becoming a permanent first party? I love that question. It does feel like at this point, all of the tech overlords, the mega corporations have taken a shot at the king and they've all missed,
Has Amazon, are they out at this point?
I think they're basically
Kramer slapping money on Seinfeld's counter.
They're not king of the castle, I'll tell you that much. I mean,
horse player Arby's.
I'm out of the contest.
I think they they got New World coming, but I feel like that's kind of last gasp for Amazon says, yeah, we'll see our way out here.
The crank handheld. That
Playdate.
cool.
Playdate's going to be the future. That thing does look sweet. And the fact that
it does.
I don't think it's a cord. In some ways, it mirrors what's happening on the little Playdate handheld with the crank up on the big screen. Like everything I see about that stupid handheld makes me more excited for it.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, except for the ambiguous release date. That's not very exciting. No. And I guess the ship in the Suez Canal was filled with those. It was hauling nothing but plated. There's some connection, they said, between the delay and the Suez Canal ship.
That's the analog with the Suez Canal.
Is that really what okay, you're right. Yeah, I'm probably confusing those two.
What's Tommy Tallarico's Amico?
The Amico that That's actually that was the co-pilot of the ship in the Suez Canal.
So I think someone else will probably try, but I don't know that anyone will succeed.
Yeah, I think it's going to shift so much, and maybe Microsoft will feel like it's taking itself out of the running by 10 years from now when it's just the Xbox platform. It's just an app on every screen you own. It won't feel maybe as first party-ish. It'll just be kind of like this weird legacy remnant vibe. But yeah, I mean, at this point, Amazon and Google have tried, and it's just not happening.
Tesla?
I guess we have that to look forward to.
Another big company, I guess.
Yeah, but they're exclusive to the screen in the Tesla cars. So,
I don't know.
I mean, I guess you can throw Apple in there a little bit as well. We're just talking about Apple Arcade, and it's cool, but it's certainly nowhere near this level of interest and competition.
If it's going to be another company, it could feasibly maybe be Netflix if they ever really want to get heavy into like, here's basically our version of Game Pass, right? And just say like, hey, here's a streaming service, and
the literal Netflix of games.
Yeah, exactly.
They could call it
Netflix's games. So then it wouldn't be competing as like, hey, here's a new company making a hardware thing. It's just like, we also have the subscription-based service that lets you play games, and we know our way around that kind of model, so we do it right this time.
Yeah.
I mean, they have some choose your own adventure stuff. Like they had Bandersnatch. They have Bear Giles' like surviving the wild. You can't kill him, by the way. I tried really hard to get him to die. I just kept sending him on bad journeys, but yeah.
Okay, Bear, so in this shot, we're going to kill you.
Yeah.
My daughter really liked the Minecraft, which was just Telltale's Minecraft, but you could choose your own adventure on Netflix.
Yeah.
And she enjoyed it, but it was funny. She finished it and she was like, yeah, I really like that. I wish I didn't have to do all the choosing. Like she just wanted it to be like she just wanted a Minecraft show, and that was the only option, which I just thought was so funny.
I guess that is what every Minecraft Let's Play is on YouTube. It's just the greatest Minecraft show that you could create. Stephen Lamson writes in, he says, hello, what do you do? Oh, hang on, I'm not phrasing this correctly. Okay, this needs to be a certain tone. He says, oh, hi. All right, what do you do, hot shots? I read that as, what do you do? That's not what he's saying. Anyways, he says, you order some fast food through the drive-thru. When you get to the window to receive your subpar food, do you A, take the bag and drive away as fast as possible? B, look through the bag and take inventory, causing everyone behind you to wonder why you aren't driving away as quickly as possible? I'm definitely an A. I could not speed through faster, and if it's not the right food, whatever, I'll nibble around the edges and then throw it away. I don't want to ever return anything. It's very uncomfortable.
Well,
see, I'm not driving. I don't have a license. I've never driven through a drive-thru, and we're driving away also. So.
Oh my God. Hey, Leo Vader also doesn't have his license.
Really? Yeah. Oh, we should go driving sometime together. I'm trying to learn. It's my goal this year. I'm not doing well.
New show plus, Janet and Leo start driving and meet in the middle of the country.
Oh gosh, I hope that doesn't end the way it could.
Afraid of killing everybody. Like I have such a fear of driving. It's so hard. But yeah, we always dip in the drive-thru. We don't check. Yeah, you just roll the dice. That's the risk you take. It's part of the excitement.
Yes.
Of the whole thing.
I completely agree.
Oh, maybe they'll put onions on mine.
For me personally, it is like I don't. If they get it wrong, then I try something different that maybe I like or don't like. But for buying for my family, I will check for like my kid and stuff because she's very picky. So
ideally, you have another person in the car who you give them the bag and they check while you drive off. But I've always been I always have that like anything I do after I get my food is just gonna piss people off. So I need to go right now. I will if something is wrong, I will loop back around and address it later instead of holding up the drive-through line. Yeah,
Stephen Lamson also says, please hurry and respond. People are starting to honk. All right, Stephen, cool it. Project Weehee submits a question on Patreon saying, salutations, CLCs. Last week, Hansen talked about Moonglow Bay, the indie game, and I was reminded of my love affair, my torrid. Is that the word? Love affair? Is that what you say? Torrid? Mm-hmm. Torrid? Torrid. What does that mean? Torrid.
It's like creating conflict, like internal really conflict within you. Like it's
there you go.
Treacherous almost, I think.
Tumultuous, kind of.
Oh, this is
tumultuous. Good adjective.
It's defined as very hot and dry. That's weird. Anyways, so but then number 2 is full of difficulty or tribulation.
It's that one.
Okay. All right.
Not the hot and dry one.
All right. So I was reminded of my hot and dry love affair with the fishing hole in Twilight Princess. Did anyone else find that minigame as fun as I did? I think I spent more hours in there than I did actually playing the game. This is a very specific question.
I used up all my fishing hole in a Zelda game love in Ocarina of Time.
You had a meter that you depleted?
Yeah, which I spent a lot of time there in Ocarina of Time, found the bottle, got the biggest fish. And by the time Twilight Princess rolled around, which the big charming thing there was you could fish with the Wii remote, if you were playing it on Wii. But it was I was so engaged in that story and that world that I was like, I'll just do whatever the least amount I need to do here and then get back on the main path.
Yeah. Well, there we go, everybody. White Mex says, hey there, Maxa pals. Sure. He has bad news. He says, you've died. Sorry to inform everybody listening and everybody on this call. Oops, I died. And in the afterlife, you can see how many times you've ever done anything. What would you like to find out? If you could figure out exactly how many times you've done anything at all.
Miles run.
Miles run.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, I do distance running, so it's probably a lot. And I don't have all the data because, back in the day, you didn't have technology that could track your runs. You could just be like, I know this is a mile, and that's how you trained, and it was really hard. And then now I always run with Nike Run Club or something, and I have data, but I didn't get that app until semi recently. So I've always wondered those stats lost to time.
So that seems pretty. I don't know. I don't want to judge you, Janet. I know you're new, but that seems pretty basic. That's like something you already track. Like if you're at the pearly gates, you could have anything. Wouldn't you want to know blinks or? Why would? But I didn't. Everyone blinks. Everyone runs. Miles I put in. I'm trying to flex these miles. Let's go. So you're getting ready to brag in heaven about these miles, and you need that ammo. Well, it's more I want to have an accurate conversation. I'm going to be meeting some of the greatest. Especially too if I'm dead. Well. I don't know if I died before or after the rest of my family. Maybe my dad could get his miles. I'd love to hear his miles. We could all kind of talk about it, give us a shared, new afterlife discussion. So, yeah, it's a little dry, but, the hobby itself is dry and boring. Torrid, so I'm going to just dig into this. It's torrid. Yeah. It's hot and dry, so I'm going to dig into those stats. Yeah, that's good. I think maybe, total amount of time I spent worrying about things that never happened. That's going to be what, 70% of life? That's dark. Yeah, I don't know. It'd be interesting.
It's funny, this question. I tweeted this 5 days ago. I wonder how much garlic I've pressed in my life.
Pressed?
It's just this. Yeah, because I probably press garlic 3 times a week. What? And I have been for
As you
years.
Should.
Kyle, yeah. I do not even know what that means. What are you talking about?
So there's this device that you buy, and it's basically you put the garlic in there and you squeeze the handle, and it just it ejects little pieces of garlic for cooking.
It minces garlic for you.
But it minces garlic.
Is it what? I mean, they have those jars of minced garlic. What's wrong with those?
Well,
it's not fresh.
That's no good. You don't want
to
do that.
There's a huge difference there.
Yeah. Are you using canned garlic?
Bottled
or jarred garlic?
Yeah, jarred garlic. Jarlic.
Yeah, stop doing that. The cloves are so cheap. You can get a whole thing. It's 89 cents at the store.
Yeah.
If you don't have a press, just cut that up.
The thing that I've fallen in love with recently is you can buy a Ziploc bag of already peeled garlic. And that's great. That saves so much time. Yeah. So garlic pressed. That's how much I want to know. It's got to be in the million. At this point.
And for the pressing, I don't know how detailed it is, but do you make thin mince? That was a joke, everybody.
You okay? Did you have a stroke?
Hang on, I think that was a joke. We're waiting for the verdict. People watching us live backstage.
Do you think garlic and mint are the same thing?
No, but mince, mincing garlic.
It's I think he imagines it getting pressed, right? And then it would be,
hang on, it's coming through. Yep. The laughter is building across the world. It's happening.
Okay. Yep. Writing this down for question of the week. Okay, the garlic one.
Chat says boo.
I'll take it. I will happily take that.
I think we've reached herd immunity on that joke already, so people aren't laughing at it anymore.
Does somebody else have any stats? Serial? Can you think of anything?
All I go to is just really tragic ones.
Okay.
If you were to quantify it, how many people actually love you?
Oh my God!
Well, you've done something, but that's interesting.
Just to be let's add it up. All right, let's actually count it.
Yeah. What do you think that number is? Here's the catch, Serial. What's that number? But you can honestly include anybody watching or listening to this that would say that they love you. if pressed like garlic.
Or like when they say like, oh yeah, I love that, like I love that guy. That guy's great. Like that counts. So it's just like algorithmically.
Do you? Okay, this is a great.
And me in the same sentence, it adds it to my total.
No, this is fascinating. Do you think anybody watching or listening to this sincerely is in love with you?
Oh God, I hope not.
Hope not.
I hope not too. And that's not a judgment on you. It's just, isn't that a weird idea to think about?
Yeah, it is a very weird thing to think
Okay, so here's the thing, everybody. If you love cereal, you can leave the comment below to let us know if you're the one person that loves cereal, or you can tweet at Cereal Vasquez to let him know.
That's right. One lucky person will win my address and stranger from there.
Can we make this like a Patreon goal somehow? I don't know exactly how we word that.
Yeah, I think that's how Patreon works.
My address or people loving me? I
think it's a different platform for people do that on Patreon too. So.
At a certain tier, you can love cereal.
Right, you're allowed.
I don't know.
Love me now, that's illegal. Wait until the proper tier has been reached.
Zion Gonzalez writes in and says, hey, everybody, hope you had a good Easter. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
You have to make this. Oh, by the way, you have to make this new generation of gamers sit down and play one game from an older generation. Anything PlayStation 1 and before. What game are you making them play beginning to end? And why? PS1 or older? It's
PS1
pretty
or older?
Yeah, new generation. What do you force them to play?
I guess what's your motivation? Why are you forcing them to play? To understand you better?
I think it's probably like appreciate where games came from. So it's like you could take a couple routes. You could make them appreciate current games so much more by having them play like what I consider to be the worst game ever made, Rascal on PlayStation 1. Really watch them squirm, but that's a rough go.
Pokemon Stadium Kids Club.
Wait, Kids Club? Which one's that?
The mini games?
It's like Pokemon Stadium. There's like inside, there's the mini game.
Yeah,
Kids
yeah.
Club, and it's like with like the rat-tat-tat race and stuff like that.
Wait, is it mini game collection?
Yeah, it's like there's Pokemon Stadium, and when you click in a Pokemon Stadium, as one does, you have like you can go to the stadium battles, or you can go to Kids Club, where you're like playing little mini games. You have like the hardened game. The games are weird, like a tongue game.
They're like Mario Party, right?
Yeah.
Mario Party.
And just because it's a good time, and they're gonna have a good time playing it, and then maybe more people can ask Nintendo to make that again because it was awesome.
More Kids Club, very specific.
My daughter's picked up Pokemon Sword in a big way recently. Like she's playing online with friends, getting into the DLC finally. Like she's saying she wants to get them all and get all the shinies and everything. And I just, as she's playing it, I'm kind of like, what if I like, not that I would ever truly make her do this, but what if I sat her down and said, you have to play the original Pokemon?
Yeah.
Like Pokemon Red. Like, what would her reaction to that be? How long could she make it before throwing her hands in the air and just being like, I can't do this, you know?
Yeah, but here's,
sprites are cute.
The sprites are cute, except for the sprite of Machop in Pokemon Red and Blue. It is, if I'm thinking of the right one, I believe it's just an abomination.
It inspired that huge feature we did at Game &
about the ugliest sprite.
That's right.
I'm trying to look this up.
Oh, I hate
Me
that
too.
stupid Machop sprite.
Pokemon Red.
But while you guys looked it up, we were watching
Looking
the
at it
recent
now.
You could grate cheese on his
my
ribs.
daughter, and they showed the original gold, like golden. Wait, Diamond and Pearl. They showed gameplay of Diamond and Pearl. DS, and she was like, "Was that the first Pokemon game? Because that looks really old."
Oh, funny.
Like, we gotta go further back. We gotta go back.
See, your daughter's like hip and cool. She plays all the big games, but I'm wondering, like, my nephews have never. They played a little bit of Let's Go over here once, but it's like if Pokemon Red and Blue on like 3DS was their only Pokemon option, I think they'd get into it.
Yeah,
but they're dumb. Like they don't know from games.
They don't know from games.
Yeah, this definitely reminds me of like a Bean but for gaming, where you're just trying to show like, why don't you appreciate this particular thing? Can opener.
MLA writes in.
Opener. I just give her the cartridge and I'm like, figure the rest out. Get on eBay.
You don't get to eat until you finish the original Legend of Zelda.
MLA writes in and says, greetings. Can you rank these RPG occurrences by how satisfying they are? This is such a good question, MLA. All right, so where do we rank these? Number 1, upgrading your weapon and one-shotting a previously tough enemy. Number 2, meeting the stat requirement to complete an objective using word/skills. Number 3, receiving a quest for an item only to tell the quest giver you already have acquired the item. Three great ones.
2, 1, 3. Dialogue, a weapon to kill an enemy. I already have the item.
I think for me, number one is having that item, because as much as I love RPGs, nothing's better than finishing an RPG quicker than you think you can. It's the idea of like, aha, I already have this crap. I think that's maybe number one for me.
I like the one-shot one a lot, though, because it feels like it's so efficient. Like going from like the feeling of going from like, I can almost one-shot, like I take out like 90% of their health, but I still have to do another turn versus like I get to do this battle twice as fast now. I think that's probably my number one. Then the having already completed a quest.
Okay.
Is that number one? Is that the same as going back to an old area and just being able to destroy everything?
It's close. Like, I mean, that's pretty much
close,
it.
But I think being able to do it in your current area, I think is a big plus.
Right.
Gotcha.
Low level enemies in your area.
Kill now, my lord.
Chris Schultz writes in, he says, while watching some Twitch streams over the weekend, I realized the biggest streamers, quote unquote, main one game. What game would you main if you had to choose? Tough.
Practically, it'd probably be Dota, or I would maybe pick one fighting game, maybe Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter 3. But I don't think Street Fighter 3 would get a ton of viewership. But
I mean, is that what you want, or you just want to go for the game that you'd play the most and it would make you happy?
Yeah, then it'd probably be Dota either way.
Fun.
That's
cool.
It, though, but.
I bet you're so good, dude. People love how good you are, and they tell you they love you for that.
That's how I'm going to get all those love points when I die.
I think I would go maybe a boring choice, but it'd be fun to be like, I am the Age of Mythology.
Oregon Trail.
Yeah, that's even better. I was going to say, like, I am the Age of Mythology streamer. Like, this is just my jam. It's never going to be relevant. It's never going to be like gangbusters, but like just really giving that game the honor it deserves, damn it. Anybody else have thoughts? What would you main?
It's rough because new games come out in the franchise too. But I stream a lot now. So, and my main game that I play, even though I'm a variety streamer, is Animal Crossing New Horizons.
Oh, yeah.
It has like a bunch of replayability. I have been playing that game for over a year straight, and I have a bunch of stuff left to do. So that would probably be my answer. But another interesting one would be maybe Splatoon 2. Because then I could finally really get good at the game. Like I went to one like in-person meetup back when we had in-person meetups where I got to like learn more like strategies, and that was really cool. And I love that game, and it would be cool to be like X rank is now the highest rank they have, and that could be cool. So like I could see myself doing that and just getting really good at it.
That sounds so fun. Honestly, one of the ideas I have listed down for a new show plus poll in the future to see if we create is like, what if we just got really into Splatoon 2? Like not just, oh, let's stream Splatoon 2, but like, no, like if we play this for New Show Plus, we are going to seriously be militant about how good we are.
Except for that football game. I don't like that game.
What football game?
I forgot the name of the game. There's like tower control, like the competitive parts of Splatoon.
Oh, okay.
There's one where you're like throwing that football thing. I hate that one. It was like the new one introduced in 2.
Oh, interesting.
But yeah.
I want to really sink my teeth into Splatoon, but okay, that's a good one. That's good. And then Kyle, I assume you'd be Mega Man X.
Actually, that was one I was thinking. I would try to become a Mega Man X speedrunner.
There it is.
Yeah.
Ryan. You can just mute your mic at this point, Kyle. We got you covered. Yeah, sure. Ryan writes in and he says, do you use the term video games or video games? Basically, do you put a space in there? Do you consider the difference to be significant or negligible? Is video games one word or two? I think it's what he's going for. 2.
It's 2 words.
I heard, I was on the 8-4-Play podcast the other day, Mark McDonald was going to the mat saying it should be 1, which I never heard somebody who had been in the press argue for 1.
Look, he's losing his grasp on the English language.
Yeah.
He's been in Japan too long.
Right.
That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
I almost feel like it is kind of almost a European thing to call it video game one word.
Is it?
Because I think maybe they have like a stronger distinction between like what's a computer game and what's a video game from like the old days of like, well, there were computer games,
idea. Yeah.
and then there were console games. And so those were 2 different things back then. And now they're kind of all been jumbled up into video game. So I think that's maybe where that comes from. But I've seen a few American outlets. When I freelanced for Paste, famously, they were a video game one word thing, which as a freelancer, I'm not going to get into arguments about it, but I definitely think it should be 2 words.
Yeah. Hey.
Museum in Texas is 1 word. National Video Game Museum.
For which?
The museum in Texas, the National Video Game Museum in Texas, spells it 1 word.
And that's a museum. That's really interesting. Janet, where do you rank this scale of 1 to 10 on the interesting level? Again, I've thought way more about Oregon Trail than I should have for any normal human being. And last night I was thinking, why? It's so weird that you move from right to the left in Oregon Trail. I wonder how that got started. I wonder why they did that. And then I had the epiphany of why. Does everyone else know this? Has everyone else already thought of this?
But that you're going
they're heading
east
to the
west?
Yeah, because they're heading to the West Coast. I had never considered that. Janet, had you thought of that? Has everybody already thought of this?
I hadn't, but then I also kind of had. I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10.
7! Wow, chat's lighting up. Oh my God.
I'm interested in the fact that you had to think about that. Like,
that's interesting. I know.
Yeah.
It's
To me,
really dumb.
it's all part of one experience of what just occurred.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you. By the way, I'm a Biggie boy watching us live at the Backstage Pass here on Patreon. He said that the laughter from that thin minstroke was resonating like Superman screams in the opening of the Snyder Cut, which I really appreciate, a very specific reference. Anyways, Crater writes in and he says, hey, cohorts, are you ready for the brand new game show that's been taking the nation by storm? That's right. It's time for arbitrarily or otherwise non-memorably named gaming peripherals, components, and accessories. So here are your questions. What? All right, some of these get pretty tough. What is the name of the Dreamcast memory card? Anybody can shout it out. What is the name of the
VMU, yeah.
Correct. There we go. Dreamcast memory card with screens and buttons. Name the 2 center buttons on either side of the Xbox button on an Xbox One controller.
Windows hamburger.
Incorrect.
One of them was Snap and the other one was Menu?
Menu is correct for one of them. The other one is not technically labeled Snap. It is labeled View, apparently.
Oh.
This is where it gets wild. What was the name of
By the way, that was right when Titanfall was getting ready to come out. They had a lot of behind-the-scenes documentaries about Titanfall with the launch of the Xbox One, and the main programmer for Titanfall was always pushing for that 3 lines button to be called hamburger. Like that was like he kept bringing that up in the documentary.
That's what I think of it as.
I think that's what it's called in like web design and stuff. Like those.
Oh,
two
yeah, that must be
so.
okay. So that was where it's from.
I got the idea from the power of the cloud. I just remember all those Titanfall ads early on. Anyways, what was the name of the joystick originally released with the Atari 2600? This is some Kelsey Lewin trivia. It's called.
It wasn't just the Atari joystick.
It's called the CX10, apparently.
No, I was not even close.
Yeah.
Name the proprietary data storage medium used in the PSP. It's not
UMD?
Not the UMD.
UMD.
Oh, Memory Stick Pro Duo?
No.
Oh, really?
Mm-mm. Was that Vita?
Oh man. Yeah, I don't know because I thought Serial had it.
They say it's called the Magic Gate. If that sounds familiar to folks, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, I think that's the sort of trademark patented hardware for like where the actual memory card inserts. But the memory cards themselves, Serial was right, it was the Pro Duo. But I could be wrong about the Magic Gate thing, but I believe it does say Magic Gate on the PSP.
There we go. Released in 1987 from ASCIIware, name the arcade-style joystick controller for the NES. Does anybody remember what that thing is called?
Ooh.
Oh, I feel like I should.
You'll know it when you hear
Turbo?
it. No. Think about
like the action something.
Ooh,
like
warm.
It was like in movies.
You're torrid here,
too.
Serial. This is the NES Advantage. NES Advantage, everybody.
Yeah.
Right, that's what they controlled the Statue of Liberty with in Ghostbusters 2, right?
I don't remember. It's upsetting that I probably hadn't played an NES before being obsessed with Ghostbusters 2, so I don't think that really stood out to me, which is weird. Did you see that clip from Ghostbusters Afterlife, Kyle?
I did.
So this is a clip. They tweeted out on Wednesday, and it's Paul Rudd in a grocery store. And I was like, I watched it thinking like that it was a commercial. And I watched the entire thing being like, it's amazing they got Paul Rudd to be in this like Ghostbusters merch commercial that I realized, oh, it's not a commercial. This is actually in the film where he goes to a grocery store and the bag of Stay Puffed marshmallows are actually all the little Stay Puffed guys, and they jump out and attack him. It is a vibe. I am optimistic about Ghostbusters Afterlife, but
yes,
that is certainly like not the tone I was expecting.
Director, I like Paul Rudd. I like the cast. I'm optimistic about that movie, but that scene really felt odd and unfunny. It really did feel like they were like, "Hey guys, hey, we're done for the day. We're gonna wrap, but we do need to. We agreed to shoot this marshmallow commercial. You know, Paul's contractually obligated, so let's just knock that out real quick."
I had missed the part where Bill Murray was confirmed to be in that movie. I remember like rumors swirling and everybody hoping that he's going to be in it, but he said that he was actually going to be in it, and he was complaining about like how heavy the packs were apparently, which I thought he would know what that would feel like, but maybe not. Hey, anyways, trivia. What 3 additions were made to the controls of the new 3DS versus the original 3DS?
The C-Stick?
Great call. Yep.
Ooh. The 2 shoulder buttons.
It's not the Circle Pad Pro. That's not what we're talking about?
No. This is the new 3DS.
The 2 additional shoulder buttons.
Mm-hmm. Which are?
ZR and ZL.
That's it. ZR, ZL, C-Stick. Y'all got it.
Oh, because 2 shoulders, 1 C-Stick.
You got it. Way to go. Congratulations, creator. Thanks for
going one modern question. I'm like, I remember ordering this.
Janet, you do not have to answer this. How old are you? Because
27.
Okay. Like the Oregon Trail thing, I'm like, that's interesting. I wonder what version you played.
I don't know either. Like, it was something it was on like, well, this is obvious, it was on a computer, but like, I don't know. It was like, at the time we had like at home, I had a compact Pisario computer.
Yeah.
So I think we had that level of tech in my elementary school. So that's what I played it on.
Gotcha.
Something like that. I think.
Checks out. Probably, 3.1 version, whatever that would be. Michael Moran writes in, he says, did y'all play games on your graphing calculator? What was your favorite? We played a lot of Bomber Kids over the TI-83 link cable in my school. I feel like these are probably extinct now that everyone just has better games on their phone. Yeah, I mean, calculator games were huge. And yes, reading this just reminded me that, Bomberman was absolutely a great variant to play on those old TI-83s.
Yeah, I had Yoshi Cookie, and I remember it bugged out on me once. And I basically was like given infinite freedom to get a high score without it act like the pieces stopped moving, so I could just move them individually. Mm-hmm. And so like I had this like high score that just destroyed anything anyone else near me had. It was like a total cheat, but I embraced it. But I really tried to go down a rabbit hole of this for like a Game Informer feature. I remember talking about it with Wade Wojcik and Reeves. And because we realized that we both grew up on like 3 corners of the United States, but we knew games on the TI-83, but the only way to sort of trade those games was with like direct contact with someone who already had it. Yeah. And I tried to email Texas Instruments to try to like figure out where these games started and like, pursue a feature. Never heard anything back. Never even really got out the first step. But like, I think that's really fascinating how I growing up in South Carolina and you growing up in Minnesota both like have familiarity with like TI-83 calculator games.
Well, I mean, you could like install them from the computer, right? I'm trying to remember how I got them.
You could plug them into the computer somehow and install weird random games.
It was called the internet, Kyle, is how we all had the same things, I think.
Was that the
Information
WWW
Superhighway?
Yeah,
those were like the graphing calculators.
Yeah, but like I remember there's a surprise. I hope it would age well, but I remember like the version of Mario and the calculator was like, this is surprisingly fast and solid. Tetris was awesome. Drug Wars, of course, for the smart, simmy, cool kids. Anyways,
fight Elmo. Took Elmo in that one, right?
Yeah.
Although like TI-83s was definitely like the first instance of like, if you want to take this class, you have to buy this calculator, and they're like $80. And that was my first experience with like, that's messed up. I don't have a job. Like I don't like I need this for this class.
Look, man, you want to play Mario or not?
It's not even like college where I have to, I'm choosing to go here. It's like, this is the federally mandated thing I have to do is spend $80 to buy this graphing calculator that I'm never going to use other than like, hey, like pass it down to the next person who needs that class. It's just like, I'll sell it to you for $56, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, school was weird.
School's weird. GoFish writes in and says, hey, everybody, not to kiss too much butt, but I'm sorry for not trimming this out. He says, but Ben's PopCap oral history video was an amazing listen. that everyone should check out and share around, by the way. Hearing about the development philosophy, the changing environment, crazy stories, and the highs and lows of PopCap as a studio was awesome, but there wasn't too much talk about the games themselves. Do the cohorts have a favorite PopCap game? I'd love to hear what it is and why it's Insane Aquarium. I hadn't played Insane Aquarium until I was getting B-roll for that. And it turns out it's surprisingly cool. Click on fish and then Xenomorph just busts through and starts wrecking your stuff. It's fun.
By the way, I want to echo the commenter. Like, I finished it.
Wow.
Really fantastic work, man. Like,
Thank you.
It was really engaging throughout. Like, I admit I was intimidated by that runtime because it's like 3 hours.
4. But who's
like,
counting? Yeah.
I didn't want to stop listening. I thought it was great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah. So if you missed this, it's the oral history of PopCap. It's, the most thorough look at that studio's history. It's a bunch of different interviews all cut together. Some people call it a documentary. I paused because it's like the video version. There's jump cuts. It's more just intercutting everybody's story to tell one larger story of what it was like within PopCap. But it was really fun to do. And so, yeah, I'm proud of that thing. As Taylor Swift said, this is me trying. Like that's really me trying to swing to be like, hey, here's the most in-depth version of, one of the most influential studios of all time and their history. And so I'm glad that certain folks found it and enjoyed it. But PopCap. Oh, and by the way, if you support us on Patreon, you can unlock the podcast version of the oral history of PopCap, which I think is the way to go, is to listen to it as a podcast. But anyways, favorite.
To answer the question, it's Peggle by like a mile for me.
I would say Peggle Knights, but that's just the one that I played.
Yeah, I guess I kind of wrapped Peggle up into kind of a broad umbrella. Although I didn't love 2, but like it was one of those games that even people that weren't big gamers that I was friends with, I'd be like, look, this is the second coming of 10. Like, you have to play Peggle. It's fantastic.
Yeah, I love Peggle. That would have been a slam dunk, but it's so basic. But the idea of like Bejeweled Blitz has just grown and grown in my life, where now I think that is my go-to love affair, even if the iOS version of it is just a nightmare. Like, it's barely running. There's pop-up ads all over the place. It's an abomination. So many of those PopCap games. And that's, what they talk about at the end of the doc is just kind of the sad state of not just not cranking out new versions of those games, but not updating the old ones. The fact that Plants vs. Zombies 1 is not on Switch is absurd. But as they explain, it's like, well, that was built in C++ and they all work in Unity now. So I don't even know if anybody can work with that old code that's still at PopCap anymore. So it's kind of just left to die. Unless it's not, please make it happen, PopCap. But yeah, I don't know. Janet, are you a PopCap person? Have you played any of their games?
No, I weirdly have missed all of them, which is kind of impressive.
Yeah.
It's just one of my gaps, I guess. I just never it was such a phenomenon, but I just never had it just never reached me. So I hadn't gotten around to it. But I've been wanting to do Plants vs. Zombies stuff forever because everyone talks about those games.
Yeah, jump into that first one on Steam. You'd have a great time for sure.
Yeah, so I'll get around to it.
Yeah, Aaron T. writes in and says, hey, cohorts, it's the game you've all been waiting for. Badland Wonderworld or Super Mario World. Below are 6 perfect 10 user reviews from Metacritic. It's up to you to guess whether the review is for Badland Wonderworld or Super Mario World.
Very good.
Okay, Aaron writes in with this quote. Perfect 10 score in Metacritic from the user. Holy F! Never in my life have I seen a game more deserving of the elusive 10 out of 10. Absolute masterpiece. Is that Badland
Wonderworld?
Okay. Janet guesses.
You want to just all vote, I guess?
Right? I guess let's go around the horn. Yeah, Janet, you think this is Badland Wonderworld?
Also, this is going to be one of those things where they're all one game, right? Please don't.
Believe it or not, that is Badland Wonderworld for a user review. All right, Serial.
It's vague enough where I actually was going to go Wonderworld as well. If they had called out any mechanic of any kind, I would have been like...
It was a swear that made me think it was Wonderworld.
Serial, is this Badland Wonderworld or Super Mario World? The only 2 worlds as far as I'm concerned. I think they're both in the new Space Jam, by the way. They fly by both. Anyways,
in Outriders, they ride to the Badland Wonderworld to escape Super Mario World.
So they say the very many creative worlds feels fantastic to control, beautiful graphics, first game to have blank. When I play this game, I'm ready to have a smile on my face for 1 hour.
And 1 hour only. I'm going to guess Super Mario World.
That is Super Mario World. Congratulations. Kyle.
What's the censor? What did you
Yoshi.
there?
First game to have Yoshi.
Oh, okay.
Kyle, the puzzles are confusing a bit and some levels are Nintendo hard, but don't affect the game that much.
Well, that's got to be Badland Wonderworld, I think, right?
That's Super Mario World for a 10 out of 10 review. Don't be confused.
A Nintendo hard to use to describe a Nintendo game is very strange to me.
All right, Janet.
Here's as hard as Dark Souls. I say about Dark Souls.
Exactly.
Also, Nintendo hard, is that hard or is that not hard?
That's hard.
Does it mean anything?
I guess that's like old Nintendo would be hard, and the new Nintendo is who knows what that means. It averages to the middle. All right, Janet. This game contains some truly unique charm that rarely I see in today's games. I can see the way that the development intent to make when they make this, and I like what they've done here. Good job.
Wonderworld.
Hang on. Janet, let me finish.
No.
Good job and good game.
Are we done?
You're done. What is it?
Okay. Wonderworld.
That is Wonderworld, correct.
Okay.
And Serial for the last one. How much are desperate the haters? This feels like it's been translated through multiple things. How much are desperate the haters? This game is much better than any ridiculous platforms games today.
I'm going to say Badland Wonderworld.
That is a Badland Wonderworld. Correctamundo. Thank you, Aaron T.
Not
for
a lot of
submitting
Mario
that.
World haters out there.
But how much desperate are they, if you really think about it? All right, what do y'all like for a question of the week?
I liked your Thin Mints joke.
Yep.
That was really...
I could take the Old Man's Journey vinyl soundtrack, I guess.
I like the drive-through question.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
There's the timeless question. I like that. The sitting down, making people play an old game. I like the ranking the RPG, satisfying thing. Accessory trivia. Badland Wonderworld, Mario World's pretty good. Surreal.
I like Badland and Mario.
Yeah.
I think it's either Badland Wonderworld or the drive-through one. Those are my two.
Okay, Janet, your final call.
The drive-through one.
Drive-through. There
Yay!
we go. Congratulations.
Everyone's been to the drive-through. Not everyone's played those two games. So
It's regrettable. Although they
Wait,
still.
hold on, but you don't drive the drive-through.
I've through it though.
Oh, you've
like-
been there. Okay.
I've gone into the area. We've gotten the food as we've gone home.
That is Stephen Lamson. Congratulations. I Am 8-Bit will ship out that vinyl soundtrack from their wonderful online store. Thanks so much to I Am 8-Bit for doing that. Now it's time for something we like to call Get a Load of This. Surreal, whose do you want to hear the most?
I'd like to hear Janet's.
Oh, interesting.
Okay. So get a load of this.
Oh, thank God.
All right, nailing it. Mine is, I think it was like last week, someone got their final paycheck and all Orly pennies as like a final FU to the person. And they were finally able to actually cash it out via Coinstar. Coinstar came through, they had a wheelbarrow full of the pennies and they turned it into cash.
Wow. That's good. That's good. There's a link below for all these stories. That's fantastic. Let's see. This is from the community. Leafeon over there in the Discord. We have a Discord you get access to if you support us any tier on Patreon. That's where you play Trivia Tower, all that other stuff. But in that Discord, there's a channel for Get a Load of This. And Leafeon submitted this tweet from Gigaboots saying, a song in Badland Wonderworld is a beat-for-beat knockoff of a Ghostbusters song, and it's absolutely hilarious. Give it a listen. So here's the song from Badland Wonderworld. And just in case your memory isn't that great, here's the Ghostbusters song. I'll play this ad. The ad's showing, looks like Paul Rudd in a grocery store poking at a bag and being attacked by little minion Stay Puft Marshmallow guys. It seems pretty interesting. Okay, so here's the Ghostbusters soundtrack.
Don't know what movie it's for, but it looks cool.
Like, it's weird it's inspired, certainly, but of all the things to steal from, I think like the Ghostbusters soundtrack, there's been so much drama about the legal rights to Ghostbusters music and they need a new drug. Like, it seems like a weird call. Anyways, Kyle, what's your Get a Load of This?
Hey guys, get a load of this. I've been I've been reading Alex Oniel, friend of the show's book, Itchy Tasty and Unofficial History of Resident Evil, which I've been enjoying. This is early on, but this was a tidbit that I wasn't aware of. Maybe this is common knowledge, I don't know, but they were talking about how Mega Man was a decent success and Street Fighter 2 is huge, but they were kind of like still trying to figure out what to do in terms of sequels, and like this is kind of Resident Evil was in development. They weren't really sure how to go forward. They weren't sure if Street Fighter 2 was just gonna like be able to carry them through everything. Let's see. And this is, okay, so I'll just read from the book. Meanwhile, game development costs were rising due to the advent of 3D games, which required longer development times and more personnel. Many Capcom employees assumed the company would eventually go bankrupt. Luckily for Capcom, in 1990, its then CEO, Kenzo Tsujimoto, purchased an area of land in California's Napa Valley that was famous for its red wine vineyards, both to pursue his interest in wine and as a personal investment. The income from this investment apparently helped Capcom stay in business through the mid-1990s. I had never heard that before.
That's amazing.
Apparently, a wine vineyard in California helped Resident Evil finish development.
Yeah, Resident Evil wine when though?
That's a great question. Yeah.
Or like everyone wanted that chalice from the demo. Like that'd be a perfect tie-in.
That's smart. Yeah. Do they talk about?
I've been enjoying the book. It's cool. It's the nice thing about Alex is he speaks Japanese and English, so it's really nice to be able to hear quotes from developers without having that layer of a translator in the middle. And they seem a lot more casual and like open to talk to him just about weird things like California vineyards and how Capcom almost collapsed as a result.
Hey, am I out of my? It's vineyards, right?
It's vineyards.
Vineyards,
yeah,
fine. Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not a wine person.
It's not Kyle Hilliard. Anyways,
it's true.
But
it could be.
It could be if you really wanted to. Do they talk in that book about? I remember Oda, who was the director for Mega Man 11, talking to him, and he blew our minds when we visited the studio, where we're talking about his history, and then he casually mentioned like, "Yeah, I was working on Resident Evil back on the Super Nintendo for a while." I was like, "Wait, what?" Like the fact that it started its development back then. Do they talk about that at all?
They talk about Sweet Home a lot.
Okay, that was like the spiritual precursor, but then he said that they were started.
That's what put a lot of the ideas in place for Resident Evil.
Right.
But that I don't know. I actually he goes through that early stuff pretty quickly. That sort of Sweet Home pre-Resident Evil 1 era.
Right.
And I don't off the top of my head, I don't think he does. But it could have just been like a sentence or two and I brushed past it.
Sure. But yeah, we read an article about it back at Game Informer. You can find that if you want to hear what he told us about Resident Evil on the Super Nintendo. I pulled up communities already. Hey, get a load of this. Fresh Air. Who doesn't love Fresh Air in NPR? I listen to a lot of Fresh Air. Terry Gross, I want your job. Give me your frickin' job, Terry. Retire, Terry. Anyways, the point is, she had an episode recently that was about birds and migrating birds. And it's one of those in my podcast queue where I'm like, I guess I'll listen to this. It was fascinating. Like, it's one of those things that you learn about as a kid and then you don't pay attention to enough of just how wild it is for the migrating birds around the world and the fact that they're spending 16 days straight flying across the ocean without stopping. And one of the crazy things is apparently some migrating birds have these genes where before their migration, they will just get swole. Like they just muscle mass just like just builds up and like they quadruple their muscle mass right before they have to make that flight. And it's crazy. And so he brought up like, yeah, obviously like we're looking into like understanding that gene because the idea of like with zero exercise, you can just get in the rhythm of this time of year. I'm just going to get super muscular. Like that's amazing. And people don't really know how it works, but it's an interesting interview. And there's a link below if you're interested. Serial, you got one?
Yeah. This is a tweet that blew up earlier this week from @HeyNiceJobStill. And get a load of this. He posts, we should start quoting the character select screen from this unlicensed bootleg mobile game from the Cayman Islands the way we did with Step Brothers and Anchorman. And it is like, I don't even know what the game is, but the character select screen just has a bunch of Nintendo characters and games from like Capcom and like basically a bunch of copyrighted characters.
Yeah.
But like, I guess they went back and did like, kind of fighting game-esque, like each character has a quote when you highlight them. But I think they all do the voice, like they don't rip the samples from the games directly. I think it's voice actors doing either like procedurally generated quotes or just like them doing translated quotes. So like, I'm going to send you a few here through Slack. So this is the one for Donkey Kong. When you highlight Donkey Kong on the select screen.
Well, we all know what Donkey Kong sounds like, Serial.
Yeah.
Have a banana butter pie? Do you have a banana butter pie? Do you have a banana butter
This is
pie?
Rosalina.
Okay, Rosalina. let's
Banana
see.
butter pie? Is that what he said?
Yeah.
Do you?
Your friend is waiting for you in the garage. Your friend is waiting for you in the garage.
Amazing.
Is that a
This
threat?
And this is Wario.
Okay.
That's not funny, you idiot! That's not funny, you idiot!
Fantastic.
There's a whole long video of just those quotes that you should definitely watch.
That's
I
perfect.
think Lynx is like, I don't talk very, I don't like talking very much.
Yeah, Donkey had a video about it. Yeah, and another one of Link's was him saying, "Watch out! I'm shooting an arrow at you." Where it's like, what? What's going on? Anyways, link below. All right, thanks so much to everybody for submitting some loads of this in the Discord. We appreciate it. Let's see what's going on this week. On Friday, we have a new episode of Crossfade going up. It's our standalone music podcast, not found in the Patreon podcast feed, but on your favorite podcast app, hosted by Matt Helgeson, and he is over the moon. He has been so excited about this episode, and it actually happened. It actually was recorded, but it's with Matt Sweeney, who is the guitarist and producer known for Skunk, Chavez, Swan, and maybe particular to this audience, he did a lot of guitar work on Red Dead Redemption 2 soundtrack, specifically the house building song. And so the house building EP is how that whole thing was lined up. So if you want to hear Matt Sweeney and some good talk about the soundtrack to Red Dead Redemption 2 and a whole lot more, you can subscribe to Crossfade on your favorite podcast app. We appreciate it. Also, any help, watching, sharing the oral history of PopCap is appreciated. It's a big whole thing. So if you appreciate a very, very thorough inside look into the rise and fall of a game studio, you can check out the oral history of PopCap on MinnMax's YouTube channel and just subscribe to the YouTube channel in any way you'd like. Anybody else have something they want to plug?
My Outriders review will be going up on Polygon sometime this week, hopefully.
Cool.
So make sure to check that out.
Yeah. Janet, what do you got going on?
This Friday, I'm going to be playing Oddworld Soulstorm, and now I'm scared. So see what it's like to play that game, not knowing what that game is like. I play games so you don't have to. Twitch.tv/GameOnyssys.
Sweet. There we go. And again, a reminder, Trivia Tower is happening on Monday, April 12th at 7 p.m. Central. If you have been learning about games for a long time, arguably your whole life, how about you get something out of it? How about you win some prizes? You can win game codes for a lot of different games from Ubisoft, Capcom, some indie games in there as well, and you can win an Astro A50 headset. And it's just a fun time to join the community, join the Discord, and so that entire thing happens in the Discord. Definitely let me know. You can tweet at me or leave a comment on YouTube or any other way if you're confused about how Trivia Tower works, but basically support us at any tier on Patreon, even the $2 tier, even just for 1 month, you get access to the Discord, and then that is where the competition takes place. And so may the best community member win. It should be a fun time. Hey, Janet, do you have Slack open?
Yes.
I sent you a list of everybody who supports at the $50 tier. Would you want to run down the list and thank all those wonderful people?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thanks to the following Patreon supporters for their generous support of MinnMax at the $50 tier. You can get your name on the list at patreon.com/MinnMax. That's MinnMax with 2 N's. Shout outs to I Am 8-Bit, Rainmaker.gg, another Eden on Steam, Mirko Arico-Torreno, MoonFaceNick, Zachary Pligge, I think.
Pligge, I think.
Maybe not.
Pligge.
Yes, thank you. BeatenDownBrian, Jawarhello, Mark Seliga, Ludwig Roque, Andrew Uerkwitz, PrettyGoodPrinting.com, IanTClark, Andrew Vala, Cameron Wardlaw, Yarrow, Alex Payne, Clint Farley, SpiralInYourEyes, Richard Smuts, Spider_Dan, Preetham Yarlagadda. That's probably not right. Steve Bamdad, Starkiller, Clayton Myers, SlyckNic, Jesse Vitelli, and SuperSeriousSam. Apologies to anyone whose name I just butchered. And again, thank you for your support over on Patreon.
That's awesome. Thanks so much, everybody. And thanks for watching or listening and for sharing MinnMax. We appreciate it. And we'll see you next time. Be good, have fun. Let's go.